Chapter 1091. Powerful. Bai Xiaowen only had one word to describe the giant dragon set. It was indeed a top-tier set. The 100 Battles representative smiled and said, "What do you think, Captain Bai? This giant dragon's face helmet should be enough to show our sincerity. Your guild doesn't have any other giant dragon set parts? Then how did you get the information on this 4-piece set?" Bai Xiaowen asked curiously. The 100 Battles representative smiled bitterly and said, "Our guild only has this one. As for the information on the set, we got it a long time ago when our guild communicated with other guilds. Someone gathered 4 pieces at that time. At that time, we didn't have this helmet yet. Which guild did that person come from?" The 100 Battles representative shook his head and said, "That person has already evolved." Bai Xiaowen did not doubt the 100 Battles statement that they only had this one set. If they had more parts, he believed that this guild would not be willing to trade it. Seeing Bai Xiaowen and the 100 Battles Duke's heated discussion, Fourth Uncle Fang could not sit still. "Captain Bai, no matter how powerful the set is, it's useless if you can't gather all the parts. The 100 Battles Guild only has this helmet for so many years. We haven't even seen the shadow of a second one. If you agree to the exchange, it's equivalent to spending 200,000 psionic points without any improvement." Bai Xiaowen blinked and said, "Mr. Fang, I've said that I don't lack money. Spending 200,000 psionic points to buy a dream is actually not unacceptable." Fourth Uncle Fang shook his head and sighed. "Alright, if you want to buy a dream, I suggest you consider this." As he spoke, he took out a psionic item. Wordless Jade Scroll, Special Item. This jade slip with a smooth surface contained a powerful spiritual energy. Please find an expert from the spiritual realm to unravel the mystery of the Wordless Jade Scroll. This should be the trigger item for the mission, right? Bai Xiaowen asked curiously. "It should be, but I'm not sure." Fourth Uncle Fang shook his head and said, "I won't hide anything from you. I obtained this jade slip by chance 3 years ago. Anyone with even the slightest bit of insight would be able to see that it contains a huge secret. But after so many years and more than a dozen planar explorations, I haven't found a single clue. I've asked all the people in the spirit realm, but they all shook their heads." Bai Xiaowen could understand that Fourth Uncle Fang was very powerful. As a top-level awakened, no matter which plane he entered, he would be able to establish a relationship with the top-level spiritualists there. In other words, even the top figures of the spirit world in more than a dozen planes couldn't see through this jade slip. Among them, there might be scholars from the ancient European world, ancient trees of knowledge from the fairy fantasy world, eminent monks and Taoists from the Eastern world, or even great scientists from modern cities. This jade slip can be considered a dream, but the chances of it being realized are slim, said Bai Xiaowen. No matter how slim the chances are, it's still easier than collecting the giant dragon set. Fourth Uncle Fang smiled and said, "Captain Bai, you don't have to try to trick me. I know that you're more interested in my hidden bid. I specially prepared these slippery boots after discussing with Xiaohua, Hao Yang, and the others. For ordinary mages, this item is a top-grade dark gold equipment, but for the 4th young lady of the Qiao family, the slippery boots are definitely a godly item." Of course, Lin Haoyang knew what Qiao Rui was capable of. Fourth Uncle Fang had prepared the slippery boots specifically for Qiao Rui. He was indeed meticulous. In this aspect, he was much better than the 100 Battles Guild. Bai Xiaowen had kept the 100 Battles Guild and pretended to bargain with them to learn about the giant dragon set. It was all to put pressure on Fourth Uncle Fang. Fourth Uncle Fang was also quite cunning. He threw out something that he couldn't use, but could easily arouse others' curiosity, a wordless jade slip. He felt that a monster like Bai Xiaowen, who had been progressing smoothly since his debut and whose strength had skyrocketed, would definitely be willing to take over. He wasn't even 20 years old, but he had already grown into a big shot. He had a treasure trove, a training ground, and a unified battle team in his hands. A new big shot like this had both strength and ambition. His confidence was definitely off the charts. Bai Xiaowen smiled. "Mr. Fang, you have a good eye. This jade slip has indeed piqued my interest. I agree to your terms. Good. Fourth Uncle Fong also showed a hint of excitement. Of course, he knew how much this dark gold weapon would improve him. This was how the exchange was. Both sides exchanged what they needed to achieve a win-win situation. To Bai Xiaowen, the Seastone Spire was useless. It couldn't be used at all. However, the slippery boots were Qiao Rui's core equipment. The representative of the 100 Battles Guild was a little flustered. Mr. Bai, our dark gold leggings haven't been delivered yet. Why did you agree to trade with Mr. Fong? Sorry, there's no need to see the actual dark gold leggings. Bai Xiaowen shook his head and smiled. I really don't have the confidence to gather all 6 pieces. Also, as Mr. Fong said, the slippery boots are more attractive to me. The representative of the 100 Battles Guild finally understood. From the beginning, Bai Xiaowen had never intended to trade with the 100 Battles Guild. He had only stayed here to put pressure on Fourth Uncle Fong. Knowing that he had been used as a pawn, the representative of the 100 Battles Guild could only shake his head and smile bitterly. Mr. Bai, you've caused me so much trouble. Although he was a little dissatisfied, he didn't say anything. Since the trade was already over, there was no point in complaining. He had offended Bai Xiaowen for no reason. Left with no choice, he could only call the guild to report what had happened. There was no need to send the dark gold leggings over. Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, I'm really sorry, but I won't let you come here for nothing. I have a top-tier gold weapon here. It's the same type as the Seastone Spire, a heavy halberd. The additional shock slam skill is also quite powerful. It can be used as a replacement for the Seastone Spire. If you're interested in trading, I can give the 100 Battles Guild a certain discount and priority to trade. As he spoke, Bai Xiaowen took out the Army Ripper heavy halberd. The representative of the 100 Battles Guild's eyes lit up. This was indeed a consolation prize. Just as Bai Xiaowen had said, the Seastone Spire and the Army Ripper were both long-handled heavy weapons. The 100 Battles Guild needed the Seastone Spire. In a situation where they couldn't get it, they wanted to buy the Army Ripper heavy halberd as a replacement. After completing the trade with Bai Xiaowen, Fourth Uncle Fong was satisfied. He smiled and invited Bai Xiaowen to a banquet as a host. However, Bai Xiaowen politely declined. After some pleasantries, Fourth Uncle Fong left the small room with Fong Qinghua, who hadn't said a word since the beginning. Fong Qinghua was a little emotional. Bai Xiaowen was a newcomer who had graduated in the same batch as Lin Haoyang. How did he get to this level? He was chatting and laughing with his most respected fourth uncle, and his fourth uncle even needed his help. When he thought about how Bai Xiaowen was actually 3 to 4 years younger than Lin Haoyang and 6 to 7 years younger than himself, Fong Qinghua felt even more depressed. Chapter 1092. There was another reason why Bai Xiaowen agreed to the deal with the Fangs so readily. It was because fourth Uncle Fong's profession change treasure was quite excellent. This profession change treasure was a carved piece of jade, milky white all over. This piece of jade had obviously been played with for a long time by the people of the spiritual realm. There was a natural layer of glaze on the surface, round and clear. Bai Xiaowen didn't know whether jade was raw, but this piece of jade in front of him must have a considerable background. Its material and exquisite carvings all indicated that it was extraordinary. The strength of the psionic particles detected by the psionic camera was far beyond that of ordinary profession change treasures. The strength of this psionic energy is even better than the soul bamboo flute I got back then. Qiao Rui commented in the teen channel. The Fangs are actually willing to take out such a good profession change treasure. There are 2 possibilities. One is that they don't have any other profession change treasures, which is normal. After all, profession change treasures are quite rare. The other possibility is that this carved piece of jade is too strong, and the profession change mission it triggers is too difficult to complete. Bai Xiaowen voiced his opinion. In fact, fourth Uncle Fong was willing to take out this carved piece of jade for both reasons, as Bai Xiaowen said. He really didn't have any other profession change treasures, and the carved piece of jade had been taken by a direct descendant of the Fangs to try to awaken. The result? The outstanding direct descendant of the Fangs failed his first profession change mission without any suspense, causing the difficulty of the profession change mission to skyrocket. In the end, he had no choice but to settle for the next best thing. He chose an A-grade mission in his second profession change mission to become an elite awakened. At that time, the Fangs had made many preparations for the direct descendant's profession change mission. Although they didn't have dark gold equipment, they still had a full set of beginner equipment, items to reduce the difficulty of the main mission, and temporary strengthening items. Even so, he still failed. The Fangs had no choice but to put this carved piece of jade aside. Even if they knew that the carved piece of jade would bring a powerful profession change mission, so what? It was useless if it couldn't be awakened. The key was that for a quasi-awakened, every opportunity to awaken was very precious, and the cost of trying was too high. But for Bai Xiaowen, it wasn't a problem. The dark gold cloak, Shadow Blade Dominator's battle banner could double Xiaojuan's attributes and triple her strength. Bai Xiaowen would also prepare other beginner equipment, recovery items, and various items for Xiaojun. Even if it didn't work out. And Xiaojuan's wish tree fruit. She could complete the profession change mission with a mercenary's wish and get a perfect evaluation. Of course, Bai Xiaowen would not give Xiaojun this fruit for the first 2 awakenings. He hoped that Xiaojun would rely on her own efforts to become a hero. Xiaojun was Xiaojun was awakened. Xiaojun was Xiaojun of Xiaojuan's, the Xiao. Xiaoxiajian Xiaojun. Xiaojun. Soon after, Bai Xiaowen and the representative of 100 Battles came to an agreement. Xiaojun of SS. The strength of the psionic particles of this profession change treasure was average. It was much weaker than the carved jade wall. But it was still a profession change treasure. Even if Xiaojun couldn't use it, it would be good to leave it for the future generations. Using the Heart of Thorns to exchange for the Army Ripper was a bit underpriced. However, Bai Xiaowen didn't ask for any compensation. After all, he had used them as a tool. The difference in price was a discount. Bai Xiaowen and Qiao Rui participated in the second round of the exhibition. This time, he didn't sell anything. Instead, he observed carefully to see if there was anything worth buying. Hard work paid off. Bai Xiaowen found a special treasure, King Cobra's Poison Sack. King Cobra's Poison Sack, Grade A special treasure. It can be used in the enhancement slot of the enhancement card to increase the success rate of equipment enhancement. It can also add additional effects to the equipment. Special hint, it is recommended to choose equipment with high compatibility for enhancement. The seller's choice was psionic points. He listed it at a high price of 30,000 points, which was 10 times the value of this Grade A special treasure. Bai Xiaowen directly offered 30,000 points. This kind of enhancement item has a narrow range of application. Generally, the price isn't high. I think, if you offer 15,000 points, you can get it, Qiao Rui said. The seller will be happy if you offer 30,000 points. Qiao Rui was right. The value of this poison sack was 3,000 points. In a normal private exchange, the price wouldn't be much higher than a special grade psionic crystal. 15,000 points was a relatively good price. Bai Xiaowen said, "What you said is the mentality of a normal buyer. It's because most people think that they can get it if they offer 10,000 to 20,000 points. That's why I'm offering 30,000 points. It's hard to say if there are other buyers who want to enhance poisonous weapons and are interested in this poison sack. It sounds like you're determined to get it. Is it for the enhancement of the Viper set?" "That's right. In fact, we've already obtained an enhancement treasure in the Black Tide. It's called the Viper's Tooth," Bai Xiaowen said with a smile. "Now that we have another poison sack, we can enhance both daggers and give them an additional special effect. As for the enhanced Viper's Tooth set, would there be anyone suitable to use it?" This question could not be considered for the time being. Even if no one used it, the set would not have to worry about sales. It could even be used as a bargaining chip to exchange for dark gold equipment. It was a profitable deal. By the way, what are the special effects of the two Viper's Tooth set? I haven't seen it yet. Qiao Rui had a hint of curiosity in his eyes. Bai Xiaowen took out the other dagger, the Viper's Tooth. When two sets were taken out, the special effects of the set could be seen. Twin Snake Tooth, 2 pieces passive. Agility of the wearer increases by 12 points. Active activation of the Twin Snake Tooth will cause both weapons to gain the Wind Rage special effect. Every dagger attack has a 100% chance of triggering an additional attack. Lasts for 30 seconds. Cooldown, 8 hours. This is too strong. Qiao Rui was also shocked. He could not recover from the shock for a long time. Bai Xiaowen smiled. It's a set of weapons. At most, there are 2 pieces in a set. This is considered the attributes of a complete set. Of course, it's very strong. Do you remember the captain of Jingwu? He also has a set of weapons called the Molten Fist Gloves. The set skill, Molten Strike, is a terrifying skill that can kill someone instantly. In comparison, the Wind Rage special effect of this dagger is not that strong. The Wind Rage special effect could be understood as doubling the damage output during the duration. However, it still needed time to deal damage. It was not as clean as the Molten Strike that could kill someone instantly. Qiao Rui rolled his eyes at Bai Xiaowen. Greed was insatiable. Of course, she could see the advantages of the Twin Snake Dagger. The Twin Snake Tooth had a passive increase of 12 points in agility. The Molten Fist Gloves could only kill one person. However, the Twin Snake Dagger's 30 seconds of continuous damage output could be used in a group battle. Let's leave this pair of daggers for Shui. Her single-handed sword skill has already reached level 10. She'll be able to get used to the daggers after familiarizing herself with them. Qiao Rui said. Yes. You can also keep the original dual swords and use them as your normal damage output method. When you need to deal explosive damage, you can switch to the daggers and use Devil Fire Dance and Sovereign's Wrath. Bai Xiaowen said with a smile. Bai Xiaowen's harvest from the capital's official exchange was quite good. He found a pair of dark gold boots for Qiao Rui and a treasure for Xiaojun's class change. Of course, his biggest harvest was the pair of weapons set. After the exchange ended, Bai Xiaowen was invited to visit the Qiao family with Qiao Rui. Today, the Qiao family's attitude towards Bai Xiaowen had undergone a subtle change. They no longer treated him as a junior. He was the soul of a team that could unify the entire Earth's awakened world. He was a top existence. Most importantly, Bai Xiaowen was not even 20 years old. Even a blind person could see his great potential. The Qiao family also learned from Qiao Rui that Bai Xiaowen had already obtained the opportunity to become a Lord-class evolver and had given up on it. Bai Xiaowen did not deliberately publicize this information, but he would not deliberately hide it either. Qiao Rui had also obtained Bai Xiaowen's approval before telling the family. This was terrifying. What kind of template would this monstrous young man get to be satisfied? Even Lord class was not enough. King class? Or demigod? Even if the unification process did not go smoothly, Bai Xiaowen could at least become a Lord-class evolver. If Bai Xiaowen knew what the Qiao family was thinking, he would definitely feel embarrassed. King-class template? Demigod template? How could it be so easy? Bai Xiaowen's goal was not these two. He just wanted to try out the Lord-class template of Ancient Huaxia. If there was a Lord-class template of Ancient Huaxia, Bai Xiaowen would not hesitate to look at the strength of the template and compare the pros and cons before choosing. Bai Xiaowen did not blindly believe that the Lord-class template of Ancient Huaxia was definitely strong. It was just that others said it was strong, so he also wanted to get one as a backup. According to Qiao Rui, no one in the Qiao family would say anything about Ouyang Heng or the Divine Court training camp. After all, the Divine Court training camp, which was the cradle of evolvers in their eyes, could not guarantee that it would produce Lord-class evolvers. Bai Xiaowen felt that his realm of thinking had risen again. Facing the grand reception of the Qiao family, he did not feel elated. His heart was calm and his whole person exuded a stable aura. When the Qiao family saw this, they felt that this young man was terrifying. After having a family feast at the Qiao family, Bai Xiaowen and Qiao Rui returned to the Kamsi. Chapter 1093. Back at home in Jinghai, Bai Xiaowen had just taken out his key when the door opened from the inside. "Brother, you're back. And Sister Qiao." Little June hugged Bai Xiaowen's arm, her eyes turning into crescents as she smiled. Qiao Rui smiled and stroked little June's hair. Whoosh. Everyone in the room stood up. "Captain Bai." "Hello, Captain Bai." Seeing the room full of guests, Bai Xiaowen was also dumbfounded. He quickly scanned the room and immediately grabbed one of his people. "Sister Jing, what's the matter? Introduce us." Sister Jing was dressed in an office lady's attire, but compared to her previous style, it was much more conservative. Even her deep cleavage was covered. "This is Mr. Jiang from the virtual combat platform, Huaxia. The few beside him are his assistants. The other foreign guests are from the United States. They should be looking for you regarding matters in the Awakened Circle." Sister Jing explained briefly and finally added, "They knew that you would be back today, so these two groups of guests have been waiting for you for a few hours. I've discussed with Mr. Jiang. The matters in the virtual combat platform can be delayed slightly. You can deal with the awakened matters with these foreign friends first. The matters on Earth were generally about earning money, while the matters in the Awakened Circle were about earning psionic points and improving their strength, so the latter was more important." Sister Jing wasn't the only one who knew this. Mr. Jiang was also very clear about this. "Okay." Bai Xiaowen agreed. "Sister Jing, you'll entertain the guests on my behalf. You can discuss what needs to be discussed. You can represent me in the matters of the virtual combat platform. Miss Camille, come with me to the study." Perhaps because she wasn't familiar with this visit, or because there were acquaintances around her, Camille didn't have the charm and boldness she had when she was alone. She seemed a little reserved. She nodded and led Luke, Monica Gray, and the rest of her team members into Bai Xiaowen's study. "Hi, Captain Bai. Long time no see." As soon as Camille closed the door to the study, she said impatiently, "When we were in the Kane dimension, do you still keep your promise?" "I mean what I say, but it depends on the situation," Bai Xiaowen said calmly. "Miss Camille, you should still be in that training camp, right? Do you have any new plans after retreating from the Kane plane?" "We broke up long ago." Camille shrugged and said, "Class 129 strategic plan failed badly. They wasted a lot of resources and achieved nothing. The big shots behind the scenes are very dissatisfied. All the investments made by the participating forces went down the drain. The ability of the intelligence team has been seriously questioned." Pausing for a moment, Camille continued, "Andre was forced to announce his departure from Class 129. However, the class monitor, Ogiest, was also a hoodlum. He directly threw up his hands and quit. Is it all right for you to reveal information about the training camp?" Bai Xiaowen remembered that Camille had signed a contract with the Spirit World's rules. The effects of the contract will last until the end of the journey to the Kane plane. Camille patted her voluptuous chest and threw over a bundle of autumn spinach. "Besides, I'm no longer a member of the training camp. I'm a free person now." "All right. Then let's talk about the changes in the training camp." Bai Xiaowen narrowed his eyes and said, "Ogiest and Andre quit, but the position of the training camp monitor is still coveted. If he quits, there should be someone to replace him." Yes, the assistant monitor, Richard Quill, took over Andre's position and became the new monitor of Class 129. The former assistant team leader, Alberta Gladely, became the new intelligence team leader. A new member was promoted to be the assistant team leader. In short, there was a series of personnel changes and a fight for power. Then, the organization will have to raise resources again before we can start a new grand unification plan. I remember that you and Ouyang Hung were both one of the team leaders, Bai Xiaowen said. Yes, the Ouyang family is really willing to spend a lot of money. When the organization raised funds from the major participating forces for the second round, the other forces all declined again and again. The Ouyang family was actually the first to take the initiative to pay, only after Quill Hill. Camille said with a smile, that guy called Richard Quill even asked me to learn from Ouyang Hung and mobilize the family to pay the funds as soon as possible. When I said the word give up, his face was full of disbelief. It was really a little funny. On the side, Lulak held back for a long time and finally interrupted, that's the quota for the Divine Court training camp. How much does it cost to get one, and it's a team leader position, and you actually gave it up just like that? The chairman was almost angered to death by you. Camille curled her lips and said, because I found a better investment direction. Captain Bai is a super genius. That's right, that's right. Lulak hurriedly flattered, Boss Bai is unparalleled in the world. Please accept me as your little brother. I will serve you tea and water without hesitation. Lulak's Chinese was really smooth. As expected of a chatterbox, he was even more fluent than Camille. That's enough. Go away. Camille arrogantly kicked Lulak to the corner of the wall and said with a smile, of course, in order not to cause unnecessary trouble, I came to Huaxia's Jinghai in the name of returning the money. Captain Bai, I've repaid the money in advance. The debt between us can be written off. Bai Xiaowen said, the interest can't be discounted if you repay it in advance. Captain Bai, you make me so sad. Although she said that, Camille still quickly transferred 110,000 psionic points to Bai Xiaowen. Bai Xiaowen smiled. The interest of 10,000 psionic points was a small matter. He just didn't want Camille to take advantage of him. After tasting the sweetness of some things, it was easy to get worse. Okay, let's not talk about anything else. I plan to enter the spirit world again in July this year to explore. During this time, you can prepare how to follow my ticket to enter the same plane world. July? Camille was a little surprised. Captain Bai, it's only March now. There's still half a year left. Why do we have to wait so long? First, I want to win the Division 2 championship first. Second, my teammates and I still need time to hone our strength and digest the gains from the previous spirit world exploration, Bai Xiaowen said. I understand. Captain Bai's decision is very wise. Camille nodded in agreement. A few months of preparation time was really not long for the Great Unification. Following Captain Bai's plan to enter the spirit world is actually not difficult. We only need a special item. I've already brought this item. Camille took out a rusty copper screw with a cap, then unscrewed it and handed it to Bai Xiaowen. The moment she unscrewed it, the copper screw and the cap each flashed with a faint light, like a seal that was absorbed into Camille's body. Captain Bai, please tighten the screw again now. Bai Xiaowen used his insight to scan this suspected psionic item, but he received a prompt that said, data chaotic, unable to query. He could only see the name, spatial coordinate locking device, to be input. After Bai Xiaowen tightened the screw and the cap flashed with a faint light again, and the light finally converged into Bai Xiaowen's body. At the same time, Bai Xiaowen received a prompt from the spirit world's rules. Unknown reason, data chaotic, your spatial coordinates have been locked. The corresponding locked target is the awakened Camille Rockefeller. Camille carefully put away the nut that had been tightened again and said with a smile, done. That simple? Bai Xiaowen was a little surprised. Does this mean that the next time I enter the spirit world, as long as I inform you, you can use this thing to follow me to the spirit world's dimension that matches me? Completely correct, but it will cost the spirit world ticket I have, as well as a considerable amount of psionic points. As for how many psionic points it will cost, it depends on the match between the ticket I have and the dimension you're in. The higher the match, the lower the cost, Camille said. Captain Bai, don't underestimate this little nut. Its price is equivalent to a piece of superb gold equipment. The key is that without the right connections, you can't get it at all. This is something unique to that place. It feels like it has the characteristics of breaking the spirit world's rules. It's amazing, Bai Xiaowen said. Yes, the locking device used by the Divine Court is even more powerful. Not only can it lock the corresponding dimension, but it can also specify the candidate's camp. However, they won't sell that kind of high-end goods at all. It took me a lot of effort to get this low-end goods, Camille said. That's normal. The Awakened form a large team, which is the foundation of the Divine Court's training camp, Bai Xiaowen said. How long will this locking state last? Under what circumstances will it disappear? At least a year. Within a year, if I use this locking device and follow you into the spirit world, the device will self-destruct, and the locking state will disappear. After explaining, Camille said, Captain Bai, don't inform me when you enter the spirit world in July. I'll keep an eye on your movements at all times. I'll set off one day after you leave at most. Remember to get a ticket for a longer stay when the time comes. My stay will follow you. I'll try my best, Bai Xiaowen said. Due to the expiration date of the ticket, it was hard to say whether they could get a high-end ticket before they set off. If you really can't get one, I'll think of a way. Camille spared no expense. After they finished talking about business, Camille and the others didn't stay for dinner and directly left. Bai Xiaowen returned to the living room. The conversation between Sister Zheng and Mr. Jiang, the representative of the virtual combat platform, was coming to an end. What's the specific matter? Bai Xiaowen sat aside and asked. Mr. Bai, the virtual combat platform invites you to shoot a CG movie in 1998. You'll be in the center position throughout the whole process, Sister Zheng said clearly. Chapter 1094. Mr. Jiang, who was sitting opposite her and had just stood up to greet Bai Xiaowen, quickly corrected her. Not the center of the whole process. It's one of the most important roles. One of? Sister Zheng raised her voice and repeated. Mr. Jiang sighed. It's like this, Mr. Bai. In the past year, you've made great achievements and brought quite a lot of profits to the company. You're already close to the top awakened ones that the company has been supporting, such as Lord Roar, Peerless, and so on. Therefore, we sincerely invite you to participate in the filming of the 1998 Virtual Battle Platform CG. In the plan, you will be listed as an important role. Your appearance rate will definitely not be lower than Lord Roar and the others. Sister Zheng deliberately said, Lord Roar and the others are old faces that have been supported for many years. It doesn't matter if they have less screen time, right? Mr. Bai is different. He's a dazzling new star. The 1998 promotional CG with him as the center will definitely achieve a greater sensational effect. Mr. Jiang smiled bitterly and shook his head. Ms. Zheng, if it's possible, I also want to use Mr. Bai as the center of the 1998 CG, because he has all the necessary conditions for a Course C role, including a handsome appearance, less than 20 years old, as well as strong strength and potential. However, our company can't do as we please. We have to take into account the attitude of the other awakened ones. Bai Xiaowen nodded slightly and said, I understand. My bottom line is to get the same appearance rate in the new CG as Lord Roar and the other veteran characters. You can talk to Sister Zheng about this standard. Mr. Jiang said again, there's one more thing. Many players want a new skin for the Psychic Trainer, so the platform is preparing to include the new skin for the Psychic Trainer in the Overlord series of skins. Mr. Bai's Psychic Trainer character is tentatively named Psychic Master, Monarch's Descent. The concept image has been brought. Mr. Bai, take a look. If you're satisfied, we'll immediately start making it. Bai Xiaowen glanced at it. The new skin, Psychic Master, Monarch's Descent, was a mixture of black and gold. It was an image of a person wearing a black and gold robe, stepping on countless piles of bones, and there were countless burning soul fires behind him. In short, it was as cool as it could be. The Overlord series was one of the more popular skin series on the virtual battle platform. Veteran characters like Heavenly Lord Roaring Roar all had an Overlord skin, and they were all in the style of being wild and cool. Of course, Bai Xiaowen had no reason to disagree. he also authorized Sister Zheng to negotiate. After Mr. Jiang left, Sister Zheng said, "Boss Xiao Bai, didn't we agree that I would be the one to decide on the ordinary affairs of Earth? If you had persisted a little longer, you might have been able to film this CG from the center position throughout the entire process. It would have been a good way to increase your international fame." Bai Xiaowen shook his head and said, "The virtual combat platform will never agree." Just as the representative with the surname Jiang said, "The platform won't offend the owners of other classic characters for a single character like me. The other Awakened Ones value exposure very much, so they definitely won't agree to reduce their appearance time." Pausing for a moment, Bai Xiaowen continued, "In addition, the exposure that the new cinematic can bring me is actually very limited. My current popularity is already at the B level. Without outstanding results in the league, it will be very difficult to raise my popularity to the A level just by relying on hype and marketing. Next, if I can win the championship in the B-level league, I will definitely gain a lot of popularity." There was one more thing that Bai Xiaowen did not mention. Next, his circle had already begun to contact veteran Awakened Ones like Fourth Uncle Fong, Heavenly Lord Roaring Roar, and so on. For a little exposure, it was not wise to seize the opportunity of these veteran Awakened Ones to show their faces and make them feel resentful. Offending veteran Awakened Ones would not only affect the usual transactions at the exchange, but also affect the exploration of the great unification of the spiritual realm. Who knew if he would run into Heavenly Lord Roaring Roar and the others during the unification process? The other party did not intend to advance to Awakened Ones. If they wholeheartedly tried to sabotage him, it would add unnecessary resistance to Bai Xiaowen. Sister Zheng only said it verbally. She was not dissatisfied. Ever since she became Bai Xiaowen's agent, Sister Zheng's career had a second spring. She was already a working queen with an annual salary of tens of millions. All of this was thanks to the terrifying profit margin that Bai Xiaowen's template sales brought. Bai Xiaowen did not spend too much energy on these mundane affairs of Earth. After handing them over to Sister Zheng to handle, he did not ask any more questions. After the negotiation, Bai Xiaowen spent a day in the virtual combat platform's studio to finish filming his scenes. After that, he focused his energy on the territory, the Level B League, and self-improvement. April was the last month of the White Phoenix team's competition. Although it was said to be a competition month, at the end of the league, there were less than 10 matches that needed to be played. Cecilia was still stationed in the north, monitoring the actions of the survivors of the north and the plague territory. She could not come to Earth casually, so the White Phoenix team had always been an incomplete lineup of 4 people. But it was this incomplete lineup that won all the way, leaving behind a series of 2-0 scores. Until the last match of the regular season, no one broke the White Phoenix team's undefeated golden body. It's too terrifying, too shocking. The White Phoenix team has not lost a single point since the Level B League started in November last year until the end of the regular season. This new team undoubtedly has the strength of the Level A League. It is very likely that they will be promoted to Level A this year. We look forward to the performance of this team that has been at the peak since its debut in the playoffs. Following the White Phoenix team's winning streak, they also attracted a lot of fans. Among them, many commentators from the Southeast region quietly changed their standpoints and became fans of the White Phoenix team. With the end of the regular season, the 4 qualified teams from the Southeast region and their rankings had been determined through points and wins. First place, Original Level A team, Silver Frost team, 119 points. This was a shocking result. They were only 1 point away from the full 120 points. The Silver Frost team had only lost one small match. Only one match was won with a score of 2-1, and the other matches were won with a score of 2-0. This small loss was to the Star Moon Battle team. Bai Xiaowen had also seen the video of that match. To be honest, the Silver Frost team was too careless. In addition, the Star Moon team was luckier, so they won by a small point. Second place, White Phoenix team, 111 points. Missing 3 matches caused the White Phoenix team to not get the corresponding points, but in the final calculation of the rules of the spiritual world, missing matches due to the exploration of the spiritual world would not be counted as a loss. Third place, Elite Team, 107 points. Fourth place, Star Moon Team, 98 points. The Star Moon Team's performance in the first half of the season was not good and they lost a lot of points. But in the second half of the season, a successful exploration of the spiritual world caused the team's strength to skyrocket. They won all the way and only lost to the White Phoenix team. In the end, they climbed to fourth place and won the qualification. Chapter 1095. After the end of the regular season, the 16 qualified teams from the 4 regions would have a 1-month break. There was no need to draw lots for the first round of the playoffs. The matchups for the first round were related to the rankings and regions. This year, it was already decided that the Southeast region would fight against the Southwest region, and the Northeast region would fight against the Northwest region. For example, the first seed of the Southeast region, Silver Frost, would fight against the 4th seed of the Southwest region. As for the second seed, White Phoenix, they would fight against the 3rd seed of the Southwest region, and so on. In the first round, there would not be any internal conflicts between the regions. It was because of this rule that every team in the playoffs paid close attention to the other 3 regions, especially the regions that were confirmed to be their opponents. After discovering that there was such a monster team in the Southeast region with a 100% win rate, the teams in the Northeast, Northwest, and Southwest regions were a little stunned. Damn, 4 heroes in an elite tank with luxurious equipment, and all of them were above level 8. They were all qualified to fight for the Super Cup, okay? Especially in the second half of the season, their performance was even more terrifying. Even with a 4-man lineup, they could still beat the other teams. How would they fight in the playoffs with a complete team? They would rather fight against the first seed of the Southeast region, Silver Frost, than the second seed of the White Phoenix. This was the consensus of the teams in the other 3 regions. The playoff rankings of the Northeast and Northwest regions were already set. Moreover, the matchups of the regions had been confirmed in advance, so they could relax for the time being. The Southwest region was different. It was the region that the Southeast region was facing. Currently, the 3rd seed, Tianhu, and the 4th seed, Lone Heart, were very close, with only 1 point difference. The final battle of the Southwest region's playoffs was the final battle of the 2 big teams, Tianhu and Lone Heart. The Southwest region even had a warm-up for this final battle, because Tianhu versus Lone Heart was one of the most exciting battles in the history of this region. This year was especially exciting. The 2 teams were chasing each other, and their rankings were alternating. No one knew the final ranking until the last moment. If Tianhu could win, no matter if it was 2 o'clock or 2-1, they would be locked in 3rd place. It was the same for Lone Heart. If it was 2 o'clock, they would be in 3rd place. Even if it was 2-1, if the 2 teams were tied in points, Lone Heart would be able to take 3rd place. This round of the competition was also called the Oscar Exhibition Match by many insiders. Neither Tianhu nor Lone Heart wanted to win. The Ying family had to face the invincible White Phoenix battle team in the first round. On the contrary, it would be better to fight against the Silver Frost battle team. In a situation where both teams wanted to lose, how could they not fake the match? The 4 members of the White Phoenix team were also watching this match through the live broadcast. During the regular season, everyone had been training hard behind closed doors and did not have much time to understand the other teams. Now that they had the chance to see the strength of their opponents in the first round, they still wanted to take a look. Although everyone thought that the White Phoenix battle team's strength was overwhelming, strength was one thing. Their mentality had to be stable. They could not be too arrogant, lest they fail miserably. In the preparation room for the competition, the guild leader of Lonely Heart was lecturing the main team members. According to the official rules, we must go all out in the closing battle, so it won't be good for us to send in substitutes. All of you must bring out the glory of our solitary heart. The coach who was in charge of arranging the troops smiled and said, "We have a great advantage, so we have to make good use of it. Remember, friendship comes first, competition comes second." The president added, We can't let a season's worth of hard work go to waste. Our ranking in the regular season is crucial for the playoffs. We must break through the first round of the playoffs. This was a crazy hint. The unspoken words of the president and the coach were that they must lose and guarantee the third place for their archenemy, the Skylake Battle Team, to fight to the death with the White Phoenix Battle Team. The team members understood. Understood, we will bring out our style and ensure our ranking in the regular season. Little did they know that the commentators were the most vexed in this round of the competition. They had to be responsible for smoothing things over. All right, between the Heavenly Lake Battle Team and the Solitary Heart Battle Team, who will have the last laugh? Let's wait and see. The number guessing segment has ended. The captain of the Skylake Battle Team, Tan Cheng, is the first to ban. What mode will he ban? This has to take into consideration the characteristics of the two teams. They are old enemies. The strength of the Skylake Battle Team is balanced. Every member is an expert in carrying. On the other hand, the captain of the Lonely Heart Battle Team, Tan Cheng, is very strong. As a level 9 hero, he is almost invincible in one-on-one battles. Therefore, I predict that the Skylake Battle Team will ban the most threatening mode to prevent the Lonely Heart Battle Team from defeating all 5 of them. The Skylake Battle Team actually banned the Conquest mode. For the Skylake Battle Team, whose strength is balanced and generally strong, the Conquest mode has a high winning rate. Looks like the Skylake Battle Team has a new strategy. The captain of the Skylake Battle Team, Peiba, secretly curled his lips. If they were to pick the Conquest mode, the 5 members of the Skylake Battle Team would have to act alone. The chances of them being exposed were higher. It was better to ban it. The captain of the Lonely Heart Battle Team, Tan Cheng, secretly scolded them for being cunning. However, he had a backup plan. He banned the champion mode. The commentators did not understand again. The Lonely Heart Battle Team has banned the champion mode. What is this operation? The male commentator reacted quickly. Looks like the two teams have the same idea. They both hope to use team battles to determine the winner. This is also in line with our league's spirit of nurturing teamwork. Blah blah blah, the first round of the competition was the true massacre mode. Whether the competition was exciting or not, the commentator would know. Alright, the two teams met at the river valley. We saw the archer of the Skylake Battle Team, Jiang General. He seized an opportunity and jumped in front of the captain of the Lonely Heart Battle Team, the heavy warrior, Tan Cheng. He shot a heavy crossbow. This choice was a bit rash. However, contestant Jiang Zhen probably wanted to force Tan Cheng back. He did not want to give him a chance to charge into the battle and cause large-scale damage. He is really sacrificing himself for others. This heavy crossbow shot actually predicted the opponent's movements. Contestant Tan Cheng did not manage to move in an S shape. Instead, he was hit by the crossbow arrow. Oh my god, what an exciting prediction. Jiang Zhen cursed in his mind. It was already 30 degrees and you still managed to hit him? Seeing that Tan Cheng had been forced back dozens of meters, Jiang Zhen could not immediately kill him. He could only grit his teeth and start shooting at Tan Cheng. What he did not know was that Tan Cheng was laughing coldly in his mind. My movement skills are not something you can imagine. There is no way for you to miss. Tan Cheng was not in a hurry to get rid of the speed reduction effect of the heavy crossbow shot. He maintained a slow state and rushed towards Jiang Zhen with the speed of a turtle. For the first time, Jiang Zhen regretted it. Why did the LV7 heavy crossbow have the special effect of shock? Luckily, Tan Cheng was a heavy warrior and could take a lot of hits. After Jiang Zhen's few arrows, he only lost less than 100 HP. I know, big brother. Wait a minute, Xiao Jun. I'll give you this mind protection spell. It can remove the control, Qiao Rui said with a smile. And my gift, Dark Gold Cloak. Li Shi equipped Little Jun with the Shadow Blade Dominator's battle flag and squeezed Little Jun's hand. With this cape, you can basically do whatever you want in the low-level planes. Take this. We won't be using it for the time being. Bai Xiaowen handed over a gold-tier item, Eden's Horn. This horn was a combat item for the Legion and could only be used once a month. After Bai Xiaowen received it, he did not need to use it, so he saved the number of times he could use it for little June. It was only the end of April now. Little June could use it once in the spiritual realm, and the cooldown would be over by the end of May. Even Han Su had taken out a bunch of good items. Low-level whetstone, forged item. After use, it will increase the sharpness of the weapon by 5 points. Lasts for 120 minutes. Number of uses, 2/3. Disappears after use. Note, whetstone is only effective on sharp weapons. Fine iron armor kit, upper forged item. It can be embedded in the upper part of the armor, permanently increasing the armor of the upper part by 4 points. Note, fine iron armor kit has a unique effect. Fine iron armor kit, leg omit. Fine iron armor kit, helmet omit. These 3 armor kits could increase the armor by a total of 12 points. For a quasi-awakened, who usually had less than 10 points of armor, their survivability would be greatly improved. Han Su's blacksmith level was level 3. He could be considered a blacksmith and could make blue equipment. However, blue equipment would not be of much help to the team. On the contrary, these fragmented forged items were quite exciting. Sister-in-law, Sister Qiao, and Brother Han, you guys are so good to me. Little June's little mouth was sweet. Li Shi was excited and took out a pair of daggers. Come on, I haven't used this set of daggers yet. Bai Xiaowen held her down. Calm down. This set of daggers has an agility requirement. I'm leaving. Little June was holding the class change treasure, carved jade annulus. She turned around and said, fully armed. Go, go. Little June, safety first. Qiao Rui urged again. Okay, got it. A light flashed and little June's figure disappeared. Phew. I think I understand how parents who send their children to the college entrance examination feel. Bai Xiaowen fell on the sofa. I hope little June can get good results. Qiao Rui said. Isn't there a guaranteed spot? Why don't you let us tell little June so that she can feel at ease? Li Shi had not recovered from the excitement of being called sister-in-law and muttered. The guaranteed spot was, of course, referring to the fruit of the wishing tree. Bai Xiaowen smiled and shook his head. He did not say anything. The White Phoenix battle team entered an orderly and busy state. The Virtual Battle Platform's New Year 98 CG was finally released. The White Phoenix team took some time to watch the cinematics of the match. Everyone's focus was on Bai Xiaowen's scene. Just as promised by the Virtual Battle Platform, Bai Xiaowen and Roaring Heavenly Lord were both important characters at the beginning of the CG. Perhaps it was to promote the upcoming Overlord series skin, but Bai Xiaowen's appearance this time also used the skin of Master of Psychic, Monarch's Descent. The black gold-styled exterior, the white bones on the ground, and the flickering white soulfire in the eyes of the skeleton army highlighted the coolness. When will this, Master of Psychic, Monarch's Descent, skin be released? I want to buy one too. Li Shi said. The result of the discussion with the Virtual Battle Platform is July this year. At that time, I will cooperate with the promotion and update the character template of the Master of Psychic, revealing some of the skills and equipment information, but it will not affect the finals in June. Bai Xiaowen said. What about the original level 6 Psychic Trainer template? Keep it. The Master of Psychic is considered a new character. Bai Xiaowen said, the officials feel that the sales of the Psychic Trainer are very good mainly because of the mid-level character position. After being promoted to the advanced stage, it will not have the dominance of the mid-level stage. It may cause a large number of pay-to-win players to complain. Then won't we charge double the price? Li Shi asked in surprise. Chapter 1097. If it replaced the original Psychic Guide hero, then the player who owned the Psychic Guide did not need to get a new hero. They could directly enjoy the rights to use the Master of Psychics. At most, they would have to pay some expansion fees. If a new hero was released, the original player would have to spend money to buy this high-level hero. It was equivalent to spending twice the amount of money. For a pay-to-win player, spending more money is not the main point. The key is to keep the psychic guide who has trained hard for a long time and dominates the intermediate stage, Bai Xiaowen said. Besides, there is a clear difference between the Master of Psychics and the Psychic Guide. The Psychic Guide uses the Desert Eagle gun, while the Master of Psychics uses the Winter Wand. Their normal attacks are different. They can be seen as two different heroes. The game officials also very insidiously sold the Master of Psychics, the Monarch's Descent skin after the classic skin of the new hero, the Master of Psychics. If players wanted to collect this Overlord series skin, they had to get the Master of Psychics first. Although the game officials' table manners were not elegant, it did not affect Bai Xiaowen from lying down and counting money. Besides, Earth's currency did not mean much to him. 10 days later, little June returned from the spiritual realm. Looks like you succeeded? Bai Xiaowen could tell at a glance that the psionic force field on little June's body was the fluctuation of a hero class. Brother, I succeeded. Little June jumped over and threw herself into Bai Xiaowen's. Qiao Rui's arms behind him. Bai Xiaowen withdrew his open arms a little awkwardly and knocked little June's head. Which dimension did you go to this time? What was the awakening mission? What was the final class? Tell me. Little June said proudly, it was the ancient Huaxia dimension. This was not surprising. The class change treasure was carved into a jade wall and looked very much like the ancient Huaxia. Bai Xiaowen and the others understood the process of her awakening from little June. It was very thrilling. Little June was matched into the Qing dynasty of the ancient Huaxia dimension. Among the 3 quests, the quest triggered by the class change treasure was S+, find the dragon vein and absorb the dragon energy for the jade wall carving. The carved jade annulus was indeed a class change treasure that was so strong that it made one's hair stand on end. This class change mission was so difficult that it made one's hair stand on end. Where was the dragon vein? It was said that after Lu Bowen killed the dragon, there were no more dragon veins in the Central Plains. This was the reason why Li Chuang, Zhang Xianzhong, and the others had failed. The reason why the Qing court was able to enter the pass and build a foundation for 300 years was because of the dragon vein outside the pass. Of course, this was the background of the plain. There was no need to investigate its authenticity. The current situation derived from this background was that the Qing court placed a lot of importance on the dragon vein outside the pass. At that time, the Qing court was in the reign of Kangxi. They had already unified the Central Plains and were very protective of the dragon vein. If it were not for the fact that they could not disturb the dragon vein for long periods of time, the Qing dynasty would have laid out a large number of troops to surround it like an iron bucket. The rules of the spiritual realm would not issue a mission that was impossible to complete. The dragon vein cannot be disturbed for a long time was the key to solving the problem. The Qing court was unable to surround the dragon vein with a large number of troops. They could only send a small number of experts and Manchurian warriors to patrol the Changbai Mountains where the dragon vein was located. 200 miles away from the dragon vein was the cavalry camp of the Qing dynasty's general, Lang Tan. Once there was a change in the dragon vein, the experts would light up flags and fire arrows. Lang Tan would quickly lead the elite cavalry to rush over. Within 2 hours, they would arrive and clean up the enemy. If it was a normal quasi-awakened person, they would definitely panic to death. However, Xiao Juan's dark gold cloak allowed her to have the attributes of a level 2 or 3 awakened person. Compared to the Qing court soldiers and generals who had just reincarnated and were generally level 1 to level 3, she had the power to fight. However, even if she had a certain amount of strength, in the face of an S-rank profession change mission, it was not reliable. Xiao Jun chose to rely on a famous secret organization among the people, Tian Di Hui. After joining the Hui, Xiao Jun also learned the Tian Di Hui's words. Of course, it was not the classic "the earth shakes the high ridge, a mountain stream is beautiful for all eternity." Instead, it was a more popular limerick. My sworn brother asked my surname and given name. I lived in Muyang City, Songlan City, Li Jin's mother. I became sworn brothers in Huading City and changed my surname to Hong. My sworn brother asked me when I was born. My age was Jiayin. I was born on the 5th day of the auspicious month. I was born when I was ugly, and so on. Entering the Tian Di Hui was mainly to inquire about the Qing dynasty's dragon vein. Tian Di Hui, who had always been thinking about fighting the Qing and restoring the Ming, and Xiao Jun, who wholeheartedly wanted to pit the Qing dynasty's dragon vein, simply hit it off. In the Tian Di Hui, Xiao Jun also received a mission to go undercover in the Qing court. During this period, Xiao Jun stole the map of the dragon vein outside the pass. In order to avoid alerting the enemy, she forcibly memorized the names of several places and put the map back to its original position. This process was simply comparable to the thrilling process of Wei Juai stealing the 42-chapter sutra. Xiao Jun did not have Wei Juai's mouth that could make a dead person come back to life, but she had a strong point. Her fists were relatively hard. Ordinary experts were only level 2 or 3 elites. In a head-on fight, they could not beat Xiao Jun, who was armed to the teeth. After returning to the Tian Di Hui, under Xiao Jun's instigation, the Tian Di Hui's experts went far outside the pass to cut off the Qing dynasty's dragon vein. The Tian Di Hui's experts and the Qing court's experts fought at Changbai Mountain, and the final result was a crushing defeat. After all, this was a historical dimension, not a pure martial arts dimension. The masters in this dimension did not have any genuine cheats. They were just more proficient in kung fu, roughly equivalent to martial artists like Bruce Lee and Hui Yuanjia. According to the background of this plane, this was caused by the decline of the martial arts world. The Tian Di Hui's experts and the Qing court's experts were in a stalemate. Originally, they still had some advantages, but under the leadership of Xiao Jun, this double spy, they advanced all the way. However, following the arrival of the Wolf Tan cavalry, this group of martial artists finally could not hold on. Their casualties were disastrous. From the secret passage to the dragon vein, only Xiao Jun could complete the last part of the journey alone. At this time, Xiao Jun's identity as a spy came into play. She disguised herself as an expert and avoided many unnecessary battles along the way, arriving in front of the tomb. However, the real difficulty appeared. The tomb guards arranged by the founding emperor of the Qing dynasty, Huang Taiji, did not ask the identity of the intruder. As long as they trespassed, they would be killed. With her life on the line, little June managed to kill 2 elite level 3 tomb keepers. Then, she managed to escape from the tomb keeper boss, the level 3 leader, as well as a large group of elite tomb keepers. After that, she put down the dragon breaking stone and began her great undertaking of absorbing dragon energy. The misjudgment of the spirit world people played an important role. General Wolf Tan and the tomb guard boss both thought that Xiao Jun would not be able to eat or drink in the tomb and would starve to death in a short time. They did not take the risk to forcefully open the tomb. Instead, they strictly guarded outside. It was only until the emperor's messenger pigeon arrived from the capital that General Wolf Tan and the tomb guards opened the tomb together. At this time, Xiao Jun's dragon energy was almost completely absorbed. Although it was not perfect, Xiao Jun did not want to complicate matters, so she directly chose to change class and elegantly left. Chapter 1098. What do you think? Am I amazing? Xiao Jun smiled proudly. You're amazing. Xiao Jun, you're much stronger than me. Li Shi gave her a thumbs up. Xiao Jun hurriedly waved her hand. No, if it weren't for the dark gold cloak you gave me, I wouldn't have had the strength to pass through the tomb keeper's defense line. Bai Xiaowen also smiled. Xiao Jun's performance was indeed remarkable. In this awakening process, she fully demonstrated the ability of an awakened to stir up the world. As for whether there were any flaws in the process, Bai Xiaowen wasn't sure. After all, he didn't personally experience it, so he just gave his opinion. Xiao Jun, you chose Heaven and Earth Association to help you fight against the Qing court. However, with Heaven and Earth Association's strength, fighting against the Qing court is still too difficult. In the end, if the enemy didn't make a stupid move and misjudged your identity, you might have failed your class change, Bai Xiaowen said. But the Qing dynasty unified the world. I don't have any other choice. Xiao Jun was a little unconvinced. Should I go to Taiwan and find the Mingjing dynasty? It's too far away. I can't make it in time. Seeing that Xiao Jun was a little proud, Bai Xiaowen decisively gave her a warning. Who said you don't have any other choice? The Kangxi dynasty wasn't peaceful. In the early days, there were Tsarist Russia, 3 vassals, and Taiwan. In the later days, there were 9 dragons fighting for the throne. No matter what era you're in, there are places you can use. Let me suggest a few ideas. Can you find the Tsarist Russia's camp in the Far East? Can you find Wu Sandoi's contact in the capital? Can you find a disloyal border general? The series of can't almost made Xiao Jun dizzy. She lowered her head and said in a small voice, "Oh. In this kind of historical plane, individual strength is unreliable. Only an army can fight against an army." Bai Xiaowen's tone softened a lot. Of course, as a rookie exploring the spirit world for the first time, your performance can be said to be perfect. You're an awakened with a lot of potential. However, you can't be proud because of this. You must always think that you can do better. Before Xiao Jun explored the spirit realm, Bai Xiaowen would not lecture her like this. Instead, he would encourage her to build up her confidence. Now that Xiao Jun had returned triumphantly, she had a lot of confidence. Bai Xiaowen wanted to give her some pressure so that she would not be complacent. Xiao Jun would not be able to join the White Phoenix battle team as their levels were too far apart. She was destined to walk her own path. That was why Bai Xiaowen tried so hard to guide him. I know, brother. Little Jun pouted. She wondered if it was because she did not give her brother a hug after coming back. But she was already so old. How could she do that in front of her brothers, sisters, and sisters-in-law? Stupid brother. Qiao Rui smiled and tried to smooth things over. All right, Captain, don't be too harsh on him. Just as you said, Xiao Jun's debut was perfect. As her horizons widen in the future, she will improve. Xiao Jun, hurry up and show us your exclusive equipment and class. We can't wait any longer. Okay. Xiao Jun opened her attribute panel and set it to exhibition mode. By Xiao Jun, Hero Level 1, / Battle of Glory, Race, Humanoid/Human, Class, Guardian of the Dragon Jade, Attributes, Strength 14, Agility 15, Vitality 13, Spirit 4, Class Skills, Imperial Draconic Energy, Passive. Your normal attacks are infused with Draconic Energy, causing an additional 15% holy damage to the target. Your body is soaked in Draconic Energy, reducing all damage received by 15%. Combat Skills, None, Imperial Draconic Energy? Bai Xiaowen repeated, amused. This name sounds a little Chinibu. Although Eastern dragons and Western dragons were both dragon-type creatures, there was an obvious difference. Eastern dragons were the symbol of imperial power, while Western dragons were simply powerful creatures that had nothing to do with imperial power. That was why the word imperial was added in front of the draconic energy. It was probably to show that this was the draconic energy of Eastern dragons and had nothing to do with the breath of Western dragons. The name is not important. I think this skill is very practical, Qiao Rui said. Generally speaking, an awakened hero's profession passive skill increases damage by about 20%, but it's rare to have such a balanced situation where both offense and defense are balanced. Moreover, compared to the 5% damage reduction, the additional 15% damage reduction is too awesome. That's right. I'd rather not increase my damage. I'd rather have the 15% damage reduction. Li Shi also expressed his opinion. For awakened heroes, damage reduction was much more important than damage increase, especially this kind of damage reduction percentage. The more, the better. The only regret was that the percentage damage reduction was calculated by multiplying and not accumulating. For example, Xiao Jun now had a 15% damage reduction. If she wore a plus 10 gold equipment, she would have another 30% damage reduction. However, it would not be a 45% damage reduction. Instead, external damage would be reduced by 15% and then 30%. It was clearer to use actual numbers, 100 points of theoretical damage. If the damage reduction was calculated by adding the damage reduction, the damage would be reduced by 45%. The final damage would be 55 points of actual damage. In reality, if the damage was multiplied by 15%, it would be 85 points. If the 85 points of damage were reduced by 30%, it would be 85 asterisk, 1 to 30%, which would be 59. 5 points of actual damage. After that, the damage reduction corresponding to armor and magic resistance was also calculated by multiplying. There would not be a bug where the damage reduction would be accumulated to 100%. In addition, the additional 15% holy damage from the Imperial Draconic energy was more useful than pure magic or physical damage. It was very effective against undead and demon-type creatures. Next was the exclusive equipment, Dragon Vein Jade Wall. Dragon Vein Jade Wall, I-form, Dragon Binding Jade Lock, equipment grade, black, special growth type, equipment requirement, exclusive, equipment position, accessory, attribute, none, additional skill 1, transform. After activating the transform effect, the wearer can temporarily adjust their own attributes. A single attribute can be adjusted to 150% of the highest attribute. Every time the effect is activated, the wearer can adjust their attributes up to 4 times. The transform effect lasts for 300 seconds and can only be activated once per day. Additional skill 2, Transcendence, passive, increases the wearer's basic charm by 10 points. When the Transcendence effect is activated, the wearer's basic charm will be doubled for 300 seconds and can only be activated once per day. Durability, never wear out. Description, the dragon can be big or small. It can rise or hide. When it is big, it can rise and spit out fog. When it is small, it can hide. When it rises, it can soar in the universe. When it is hidden, it can hide in the waves. Note 1, this exclusive equipment is a little complicated to use, said Li Shi. The second skill, Transcendence, increases charm. This is the third time I've seen an item that increases charm. Qiao Rui glanced at Bai Xiaowen and said with a smile, if we're not family, we won't enter the same house. Chapter 1099. The super skill is practically an official cheat. Bai Xiaowen, who had tasted the sweetness of the leaf-covering peony illustration, was very clear about the effects of charm. My treasure illustration only works on people with high basic charm, like me. But Xiao Juan's super skill actually adds 10 points to basic charm. That's even more impressive. It works on people with low basic charm too. After a pause, Bai Xiaowen continued, of course, the best is still the first skill change. The more advanced it is, the more powerful it becomes. Think about it. If Xiao Juan's attribute reaches 100 points in the later stages, she can activate a skill change and it can suddenly increase to 150 points. It's definitely a qualitative change. The most shameless thing is that it can be changed 4 times. As the equipment grows in the future, the number of changes should increase. However, it should be difficult to use well. This skill is too complicated. Qiao Rui expressed his opinion. Adjusting attributes means that one of the body's functions will rapidly increase while the other functions will be correspondingly weakened. It's easy to not adapt to it, especially for awakened physical combatants. Many times, it's easy to lose balance. It'll be very powerful if used well, so Xiao Jun needs to practice more. Before mastering the skill, you're not allowed to go to the spiritual realm. What do you mean by mastering? Xiao Jun asked pitifully. Let's put it this way. Bai Xiaowen gave an example. You punch a target and activate the skill change when you punch, adjusting it to 150% dexterity. The moment your fist hits the enemy's body, it changes again, adjusting it to 150% strength. That's so difficult, Xiaojun said. Well, if you can do that, you'll be considered a beginner. Bai Xiaowen showed a kind smile. The requirement for mastering is to be able to quickly change it to 150% constitution when dealing with physical attacks. When dealing with spiritual type control skills, you can quickly change it to 150% spirit. Well, since your spirit is too low, you don't have to practice the last one for the time being. In short, you can freely switch between them like an extension of your arm. Xiaojun almost fainted on the ground. By the way, Xiaojun, what's your specialty attribute? Other than spirit, your strength, dexterity, and constitution are very close, Qiao Rui said curiously. The spiritual realm's rules gave me 3 missions. 2 of them were strength-type warrior missions. My specialty should be strength, right? Little June said uncertainly. How is the growth of the Dragon Jade Guardian distributed? Bai Xiaowen asked. Let me check. For every level up, strength +4, agility +3, vitality +3, spirit +2. Looks like it's a strength-based profession, but it's much more balanced than the average violent warrior. Bai Xiaowen seized the opportunity to lecture again. Xiaojun, this kind of profession is very dangerous. You either have to be like me, good at everything, or you'll be mediocre in all aspects, bad at everything. Every level increased his stats by 12 points, which was 1 point more than the shaman's. Looking at Xiaojun's somewhat domineering class skills, this Dragon Jade Guardian class seemed to be very strong. At least it was worthy of the difficulty of the S+ class advancement quest. The hero class in the ancient Huaxia dimension was indeed a little fierce. However, compared to Bai Xiaowen's Black Soul Stone, the Dragon Vein Jade Disc was still slightly inferior. I know, I'll work hard. Xiaojun said weakly. Oh right, I still have 10 free attribute points that I haven't used yet. Let's add them all to vitality. Bai Xiaowen, Qiao Rui, and Li Shi gave their suggestions at the same time. Xiaojun now had the dark gold cloak, and 14 points of strength was enough for her to dominate one level, so she didn't have to worry about damage output. Considering that she was going to explore the spiritual realm alone, it was necessary to max out her vitality. If she were to team up with other people in the future, equipment that increased vitality would definitely be given to the main tank, so Xiaojun could only distribute strength equipment. In addition to the 4 points of strength growth per level, Xiaojun's strength attribute would definitely be the highest in the future. After Xiaojun finished adding 10 points to vitality, her vitality had reached 23 points. Ordinary level 4 or 5 intermediate awakened, as long as they weren't tanks, should be around this standard. Next, Xiaojun would train her transformation skill with the White Phoenix team, striving to master it as soon as possible and become a combat power. Moreover, Xiaojun was already an awakened hero, so there was no point in continuing to stay at Red Flame High School. It was necessary to register for the college entrance examination in advance. It just so happened that it was May now, so there was still time to register for the college entrance examination after passing Red Flame High School. Bai Xiaowen wouldn't be idle during this month. He had been paying close attention to the security of the territory in the Kane dimension, and through Cecilia, he carried out a step-by-step plan. The remnant forces of the Lord of Plague in the Northern Lands had to be dealt with, otherwise Cecilia would be tied up in the Kane dimension. Whether it was the upcoming league or the scheduled exploration of the spiritual realm in July, she couldn't leave. Bai Xiaowen wasn't an arrogant person. If he could guarantee the championship with a complete lineup, of course, he wouldn't want to play the playoffs with an incomplete 4-person lineup. After a few more days, Cecilia sent a signal through the warehouse. Bai Xiaowen summoned Cecilia at the last minute, and the White Phoenix team had a meeting. What's the situation in the Northern Lands now? Bai Xiaowen asked. Cecilia said, it's already a critical moment. The remnant army under the command of the Lord of Plague actually climbed the cliff and went around the Black Rock defense line. We don't know where they are hiding, but they could threaten Whitestone City at any time. In addition, there have been spies sneaking into Whitestone City recently, and they're gathering information everywhere. Bai Xiaowen nodded and said, "Those undead remnants won't dare to attack the city unless they find a way to deal with the ultimate bane of the plague. As for the spies sneaking in, their main target should be Dr. Zombie." Cecilia nodded and said, "The news you released before was effective, but Dr. Zombie is very dissatisfied with you, and feels that you're betraying him. I'm selling Dr. Zombie, using him to bait out the opponents and make them reveal their flaws." Bai Xiaowen smiled. "For the Lord of Plague, Dr. Zombie is only an ordinary template, but he's the #1 enemy that must be eliminated quickly. Cecilia, follow your previous strategy, relax in the open and tighten in the dark, and secretly keep an eye on the Research Institute. The next time the signal comes, I'll take the other teammates directly to the Kane Dimension in the Northern Lands. I hope to hear good news from you then." Cecilia nodded seriously. "I will." Without lingering for too long, Cecilia rushed back to Kane Dimension. Only a day later, Cecilia sent a clear signal. Bai Xiaowen and his teammates were already prepared, and they used the Northern Lands fief order to head to Kane Dimension again. It had been 2 months since the last time they returned from Kane Dimension. Including the 2 days they saved previously, this time, the White Phoenix team had a total of 4 days to stay. Whether or not they could succeed in one battle depended on this time. Chapter 1100. Let us mourn the great scholar with a heavy heart. In front of the town square, Cecilia's voice was heavy as she faced the white stone city guards who were ready to go. The scholar sacrificed his entire life for the prosperity of the city and to resist the undead plague. It was because of his special plague medicine that we were able to survive and not become the claws of the Lord of Plague. However, the cunning enemy extended their evil claws to this master. They even destroyed the production factory and warehouse of the plague medicine. The enemy's goal is very obvious. They want to use the evil plague to turn us all into undead. We will become the servants of the Lord of Plague. Warriors, we can't just sit here and wait for death. The enemy is in the north, and the Imperial Army is also rushing over. We must lead the army to the north, confront the enemy, and completely annihilate them. The 3 knight captains, Tim, Mark, and Phil, immediately shouted, "For the scholar! For the scholar! For freedom, for survival! For freedom! For survival!" The morale of the army can be used. Bai Xiaowen, who was hiding in the attic of the Lord's mansion, said as he watched the scene. "I strongly object, boss." In the Black Soul Stone, Zombie Doctor, who was in soul form, said unhappily, "I'm an important researcher and should enjoy your protection. But what happened? You used me as bait. If I die a few more times, I'll forget all the precious knowledge in my mind." "If you forget everything, you won't have any value," Bai Xiaowen said. Zombie Doctor shrunk his neck. "I'm just exaggerating, boss. Although death will cause a certain amount of damage, as long as boss provides a little bit of soul essence, I'll still remember the things that I've forgotten." That's good. However, I'm also lacking soul essence, so you have to use it sparingly. If you need it, go find Delafa. For the next few days, stay in the Lord's mansion and don't go anywhere." After Bai Xiaowen finished speaking, he put on his cloak and walked out of the Lord's mansion with Qiao Rui, Li Shuyi, and Han Su. After her speech, Cecilia met up with Bai Xiaowen. "How's the preparation going?" Bai Xiaowen asked. "I've already prepared it in advance. There are a total of 300 barrels. When we destroyed the drows, we only used a few dozen barrels." Cecilia was a little worried. "Can we fit them in the storage space?" "Don't worry, I still have the team storage space," Bai Xiaowen said calmly. "Do you know the actual situation of the enemy?" "Sister Selen has been following the assassin all the way. She has already sent us some basic information. She doesn't dare to get too close to the enemy's headquarters and can only use her tongue to search. Her information might not be complete." Cecilia paused for a moment and continued, "The command center of the remnant army is jointly decided by 3 people. The 3 of them were the Orc Warlord, Gartman the Crusher, the Troll Warlord, Kryden the Skull Cutter, and the representative of the Lord of Pestilence, Gowers the plague envoy. There were about 6,000 people in the entire army. I'll mark their positions on the map. Bai Xiaowen smiled. Very good. After these 6,000 troops are destroyed, I believe the Lord of Pestilence won't be able to organize another attack for a while. You have to be careful. I don't want to see you take risks alone. Cecilia stroked Bai Xiaowen's cheek. Don't worry, I'll do what I can. Well, let Bonita take me to the warehouse. You and Shui will lead the army to the north. When the agreed secret signal appears, we'll kill our way into the battlefield. Bai Xiaowen peeked around and saw that there was no one around. He gently kissed Cecilia's face. White Eagle Air was flying high in the sky. Bai Xiaowen rode on its back and looked down at the majestic and rough mountains of the northern region. Air was flying very fast. Not long after, Bai Xiaowen saw the camp of the remnant army below. Let's ring the final bell. Bai Xiaowen stood on White Eagle Air's back, took out a large wooden barrel from the storage space, and threw it down. Swish. 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 Large wooden barrels fell from the sky and splashed a lot of white smoke when they landed. After inhaling the smoke, the undead troops felt uncomfortable and tore at their own skin. The ultimate nemesis of the plague, encountering the undead of plague, was like dry wood encountering a raging fire. No one could stop it. A wave of zombies was spreading. Soon, the remnant army reacted. In the main tent, the 3 members of the senior military conference stood up and gave orders. It's a drug for the undead of plague. Order everyone to disperse. Use the Lord's backup plan to suppress the effect of the drug. High altitude. Shoot that damned bird down. Seeing the messy camp of the remnant army, Bai Xiaowen showed a smile. Sorry, I'm not going to give you a chance to deal with it. After throwing down the last barrel, Bai Xiaowen gently tapped White Eagle Air's back with the tip of his foot. White Eagle Air understood Bai Xiaowen's intention and swooped down. At the lowest point, Bai Xiaowen suddenly jumped down. Then White Eagle Air pulled up high and flew in the direction of Baishur City while chirping. Boom! Smoke and dust filled the air. Bai Xiaowen landed in a classic half-kneeling position, and the earth shook slightly. When the smoke and dust dissipated, Bai Xiaowen slowly raised his head. The surrounding remnant army looked at this scene in amazement, and an unspeakable fear spread. What should they do? The flying man in front of them seemed to be very cool and powerful when he landed. Should they go? Or should they wait for others to test his strength? Bai Xiaowen didn't know the thoughts of the remnant army around him. There were only 3 letters in his heart. MP, my legs are numb. If I'm given another chance, I won't pretend. The 3 members of the senior military conference also found Bai Xiaowen falling from the sky. What are you hesitating for? Go! Kill this despicable human. The orc warlord, Gartman the Smasher, roared loudly. The remnant army soldiers hesitated and stepped forward. The numbness in their legs didn't affect Bai Xiaowen's next move. As early as when he was on the back of White Eagle Air, Bai Xiaowen had replaced his title with an A-level title that he had never used before. Messenger of Misfortune. Messenger of Misfortune, your existence heralds the arrival of misfortune. After the combat state lasts for 5 seconds, all nearby targets, regardless of friend or foe, including yourself, will be affected by the effect of misfortune, adding a random abnormal state. The description of this title was very long. The longer the combat time, the more abnormal states added, the greater the range of influence, and the higher the priority level was as high as 8 points. It was no exaggeration to say that all the remnant army here, one by one, could not be exempted from the negative state with a priority level of 8. When the remnant army shot arrows at Bai Xiaowen in the sky, he entered the combat state. Now, the 5 seconds were up. A layer of dense gray fog that only Bai Xiaowen could see suddenly shrouded all the enemies within 100 meters, including himself. Chapter 1101. The effect of the Messenger of Misfortune title had been triggered. The first negative status appeared. Cold of winter, movement speed reduced by 40%. Receive 3 points of cold damage per second. The surviving soldiers who were about to go forward and beat up by Xiaowen suddenly felt a bone-chilling cold. Their originally jogging movement was now as slow as a turtle crawling. They watched helplessly as the pretentious human slowly stood up from the ground and gently patted the dust on his knees. "Ha! Today, none of you can leave." Bai Xiaowen put his hands behind his back and had the demeanor of a master. After another 3 seconds, the range of the messenger of misfortune quickly expanded to a radius of 200 meters, and a new abnormal status was added. Shock, enter a dizzy state that lasts for 3 seconds. Bai Xiaowen was naturally dizzy as well, but now his sincere heart status had been stacked to the maximum and had a terrifying 75% control reduction. As an additional special skill of the Sword Soul of Kusanagi, sincere heart was different from ordinary toughness skills. Even if the priority of the abnormal status was 8 points, the duration could be reduced proportionally. Bai Xiaowen was only stunned for a moment before he came to his senses. He saw that the enemies within a radius of 200 meters were affected by the 2 negative statuses of shock and cold of winter at the same time. He. Self-destructing small trucks, how interesting. Bai Xiaowen thought happily in his heart. As expected of a level A title. As long as he went all out, he could fight an army alone. 3 seconds passed, and the next abnormal status, bloody toxin outbreak, also expanded to a radius of 300 meters. The radius increased by 100 meters, and the area was far more than just doubled. The range of the messenger of misfortune's influence would double over time, and the expansion speed would become faster and faster. Bai Xiaowen couldn't help but be a little curious. Could this range extend infinitely? Soon, Bai Xiaowen realized that he was thinking too much. Half a minute later, the radius of the messenger of misfortune had expanded to the limit of 1,000 meters. This was already very exaggerated. It was equivalent to a Lord's Halo skill. And it was more powerful than a single Lord's Halo because it added a variety of abnormal statuses, such as cold, reduced attack speed, sluggish, periodic damage. The only drawback was that it would have the same effect on the wearer of the title. Bai Xiaowen looked at his status bar. Because most of the negative statuses were continuous effects, he could not get rid of them without removing his title. Heart of Sincerity's control reduction was also useless. 75% toughness would only reduce negative statuses for a limited time, but would not take effect on negative statuses that lasted indefinitely. Although the survivors were suffering from the double ravages of the messenger of misfortune and the bane of the plague, they still would not sit still and wait for death. Instinctively, they rushed up to beat up Bai Xiaowen. Bai Xiaowen could only summon Butcher and activate Decay to protect himself. As for summoning the army of the dead to counterattack, there was no such thing. The undead army would also be affected by many negative statuses and would not be able to deal effective damage. Instead, Fatty's corrosive poison AoE was the most effective. The green color was naturally harmless. Bai Xiaowen's goal had also been achieved. He wanted to use the large number of negative statuses of the messengers of misfortune to delay the escape of the survivors so that they could absorb more of the ultimate plague nemesis, which was highly toxic to them. After seeing the White Eagle, the White Stone City Guards, who had been waiting for a while, entered the battlefield under Cecilia's order. Charging at the very front was the ace troop that Cecilia had personally trained, the Winged Cavalry. The Winged Cavalry used composite bows from a long distance, and a burst of shooting caused a lot of damage to the survivors. When the two armies gradually came into contact with each other, the Winged Cavalry put down their composite bows and changed to melee weapons such as lances. They sped up their horses and began to charge. The Winged Cavalry, who were fully equipped with light steel armor and armed to the teeth, confronted the chaotic army of the survivors. The advantages and disadvantages were obvious at a glance. With a single charge, the Winged Cavalry trampled the disorderly formation of the remnants into pieces. It was like an iron hammer hammering a rotten piece of wood into pieces. This cavalry troop, which was suitable for both long and short distances and had the advantages of light cavalry and heavy cavalry, was definitely the ace troop class of the Cain dimension. It was also Cecilia's unique troop class. The expensive construction cost was the only limitation. Until now, the wing cavalry troop of Whitestone City only had about 100 people. The lack of high-quality soldiers was secondary. The production of high-quality light steel armor and composite bows meant that each set of armor was worth shiny gold coins. If it were not for Bai Xiaowen's request to sell the explosive wing cavalry, there would not be such a cavalry troop of 100 people now. The excellent performance of the wing cavalry troop also made Cecilia feel relieved. These days, the finances of Whitestone City were in a state of collapse. She asked the governor's office and even the entire bureaucratic system to be frugal and save all expenses for military expenses. As for Cecilia herself, she lived a simple life like an ascetic monk. She set an example for others. All these efforts were worth it and were not in vain. However, the survivors were not easy to deal with. The collapse of the frontal battlefield and the intensification of the plague's nemesis virus made the three people in the high-level military meeting unable to sit still. Gartman, the orc warlord, waved his giant hammer and smashed a wing cavalry with his horse. He roared and launched a steel whirlwind. The surrounding wing cavalry could not dodge in time and were all smashed by the steel windmill. The first wing cavalry to be repelled could not withstand Gartman's attack and was directly rolled into meat paste by the steel whirlwind. This scene made Cecilia's heart ache. She angrily took off her big bow and shot a sniper arrow. The arrow repelled Gartman the Smasher and finally saved the other wing cavalry. Qiao Rui cast Life Heal from a distance and healed the blood of the wing cavalry. Cecilia then shot a series of arrows. Each arrow whistled through the air and flew toward the vital parts of Gartman the Smasher. This forced the strong and barbaric orc to dodge and have no time to attack. The arch-troll warlord, Crichton the Skullcutter, held an ancestral spear in his hand and sneakily approached Cecilia. Although he was in stealth mode, his movement speed was very fast. He flashed left and right in the crowd, hiding like a snake. He was also as deadly as a snake. However, Qiao Rui and Sister Celine's mental scans caught the troll warlord at the same time. Sister Celine used Holy Word, Dazzle, illuminating Crichton's head as bright as day. The latter had nowhere to hide. Crichton knew that things were not good. When he wanted to retreat, a shadow suddenly broke through the distance and slashed down. Swoosh! 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 1 slash led to 7 slashes. Li Shui, who had activated Invincible Slash, was like a dancing elf on the battlefield. She waved her flashing cold sword, leaving bloody marks on Crichton's withered skin. Chapter 1102. Skullcutter Crichton let out a strange cry and waved his spear to stab madly, but it all hit nothing but air. Under the state of Invincible Slash, Li Shui ignored these ordinary attacks. As long as she didn't encounter any area of effect skills, she was invincible. At the rear of the survivors' front line, the Plague Messenger, Lich Gowers, watched his side retreating in defeat and couldn't help but become anxious. He waved his hand and released a Dead Spirit Frenzy skill, causing all the undead survivors' strength to erupt. Subsequently, the Plague Messenger Gowers stood on the back of a plague beast, waved his staff, and began to chant. Obscure psionic fluctuations surged. However, at the moment when the spell was about to be completed, an indescribable fear seized Gower's heart. Deterrence. Immediately afterward, a thunderbolt fell from the sky and accurately hit Gower's head. The demon-destroying damage caused by the lightning strike caused Gower's vision to turn black, and he fell from the plague beast's back. The sound of horse hooves was as swift as raindrops. The Death Knight led 3 Terror Knights, wrapped in a dark red aura, and like a huge red arrow, they shot straight at the Plague Messenger Gowers. Bai Xiaowen stood beside the butcher, gently took off his cloak, and revealed a smile that angered the Lich to death. Your opponent is me. As early as the battle between the Baishur city guards and the survivors' army began, Bai Xiaowen had removed his title as the Messenger of Misfortune. Damn guy. You're the Baishur overlord. Lich Gowers recognized Bai Xiaowen's face and gritted his teeth. You? How did you store so much plague medicine? Your warehouse and factory have been destroyed by me. I also killed the erudite. Bai Xiaowen shrugged. What was placed in the warehouse wasn't necessarily medicine. It could also be clear water. The real medicine has been moved in advance, okay? As for the erudite. Sorry, that's an undead creature summoned by me. No matter how many times it dies, it can be resurrected. The soul fire in Lich Gowers' eye sockets throbbed violently. You did it on purpose. Correct, but unfortunately, there's no reward. Bai Xiaowen laughed cheerfully. Die, damned Lich. The outcome of this war had been decided from the very beginning. The White Phoenix team crushed the top combat power of the remnant army. The three rare leaders, Gartman the Smasher and Kryden the Skullcutter, were pinned down. Gowers the Plague Messenger was crushed by Bai Xiaowen and could not play any role at all. The winged cavalry, as the Baishur City Guard's attack force, was enough to break the formation of the survivors. The survivors were affected by the ultimate plague nemesis, and under the unbearable itchiness of their bodies, their combat effectiveness was even less than 10%. They were killed by the White Stone City Guards led by the winged cavalry. Bai Xiaowen also left a backup plan, which was the Empire's vanguard at the Black Boulder defense line. If things didn't go well, the Empire's vanguard would enter the battlefield as a form of insurance. But from the looks of it now, this insurance was probably not needed. The battle was not intense. For the Whitestone army, it was a smooth-sailing battle, but for the survivors, it was a torment worse than death. Unfortunately, Bai Xiaowen's title as the Messenger of Misfortune was not counted as a kill contribution. Otherwise, there would be hundreds of elite enemies in the 6,000 remnant army, and just the soul essence alone would be enough for him to reap a full harvest. Thinking about it, it made sense. The negative effects brought about by the Envoy of Misfortune title seemed to have been cast by a mysterious existence. It wasn't under Bai Xiaowen's control. Even Bai Xiaowen himself was affected by it, which was the proof. It was normal that it was not counted as Bai Xiaowen's kill contribution. With the three leaders of the remnant beheaded by Bai Xiaowen, Li Shi, and Cecilia, the annihilation battle finally came to an end. The subsequent cleaning of the battlefield and cleaning of the corpses to avoid triggering the plague was a matter for another time. The White Phoenix team, with 3 shiny gold treasure chests and a silver treasure chest, returned triumphantly. At the junction of the Sin Domain and the north, a black army was quietly retreating. This army was composed entirely of the undead, and the pairs of soul fires pulsing in their eye sockets were proof of this. In the lead was a huge chariot, which was pulled by 2 bone dragons. On the huge chariot, there was a throne made of bones. Strangely, there was no one on the throne, not even a ghost. A lich floated beside the bone dragon chariot like a ghost and carefully looked at the empty throne. "Master, I'm afraid Gowers and the others won't be able to come back." A voice came from nowhere and floated in the air. "Master, why did you order a retreat? If we join the battle, maybe the battle will be rewritten." After a moment of suffocating silence, the voice that came from nowhere rang out once more. "Are you doubting me? Huxley?" The lich trembled, and the soul fire in his eye sockets trembled violently. "No, great master, please forgive the confused Huxley. I definitely don't mean to doubt you. Joining the battle is meaningless. The elites of the Imperial Army are watching in the dark. I won't take the risk before I'm sure of victory." Huxley nodded vigorously. "Master is wise." The voice seemed a little tired. "Go back and continue to manage the underground world. We can't take down Baishur City before we develop an antibody virus against the bane of the plague." "Yes," Huxley replied respectfully. That night, a celebration banquet was held in Baishur City. Viscount Dennis, the commander of the Imperial Army at the Black Rock defense line, was also invited to attend. Viscount Dennis was a little unhappy. Taking advantage of the influence of the ultimate plague's bane on the remnant army to slaughter them was a shortcut to gain military merits. However, the Imperial advance force hid outside the battlefield because of Bai Xiaowen's words. As a result, until the end of the battle, the backup of the remnant army that Bai Xiaowen mentioned did not appear. He missed an opportunity to gain military merits in vain. On the contrary, the Baisher army was in the limelight. Of course, although he was unhappy, Viscount Dennis still showed the elegance and demeanor of a noble on the surface. He congratulated Bai Xiaowen for defeating the remnant army. "You are unhappy." Bai Xiaowen's first sentence made Viscount Dennis's smile freeze on his face. "Oh my, do you know how to chat? Are you still a noble?" Viscount Dennis really wanted to talk to Bai Xiaowen about the etiquette of nobility. What was a noble? When cutting the flesh of the opponent with a knife and fork, one had to elegantly tie a napkin and pray to the Lord of Light for blessing. However, Bai Xiaowen's second sentence made Viscount Dennis's noble demeanor and reservedness fly beyond the clouds. "The credit for defeating the remnant army belongs to you." "Really?" Viscount Dennis asked subconsciously, and then calmed down. "Why do you want to give me the credit?" Bai Xiaowen did not answer the question directly. He just smiled slightly. "My status is already very high." Ignoring Viscount Dennis's thoughtful expression, Bai Xiaowen continued to throw a bomb. "There is also an opportunity to make a contribution, which is 10 times more than the merit of defeating the remnant army. It depends on whether your excellency has the courage to do it." Viscount Dennis had been disrupted by Bai Xiaowen's series of bombs and was subconsciously led by the nose. "What opportunity?" Bai Xiaowen smiled and slowly spat out 4 words. "Attack the sinful realm." Chapter 1103. Since ancient times, the Sin domain was the territory of the survivors. The environment there was dangerous, the thick layer of frozen soil was covered with snow all year round, the sun could not be seen for most of the year, and there were even more dangerous wild trolls and savage beastmen. The so-called wild trolls and savage beastmen referred to those who had not formed tribes and were ignorant and uncivilized. The tradition of the Cain beastmen and trolls eating humans was passed down from the wild trolls and savage beastmen. The wild trolls and savage beastmen were even worse, they even ate their own kind, they were completely beasts in human form. The humans of the Gorse Empire had always been curious about how the survivors of the Sin domain survived in such a harsh environment. It was also because of the harsh environment of the Sin domain that the Gorse Empire did not take any military action against the Sin domain when they were at their peak. As long as the nobles of the north could block the survivors outside the Black Rock defense line, everything would be fine. But with the rise of the Plague Lord, the strategic position of the Sin domain had changed. If they could take over the Sin domain, they could cut off the influence of the Plague Lord and block him in the underground world. He would not be able to threaten the surface world of Cain. If they allowed the Sin domain to be invaded by the Plague Lord, the latter would always have a perfect springboard to accumulate strength and attack the Gorse Empire. For Viscount Dennis to be entrusted with such an important task by Nicholas IV, his strategic foresight was definitely on point. Bai Xiaowen did not need to analyze in detail, he could also see the need to attack the Sin domain. Once he succeeded, as the commander of the Empire's vanguard, he would be bathed in flowers and applause, and become the greatest contributor to the Empire's northern expedition. Fame, title, land, everything would be within his reach. But, what was the chance of success? Now is the best time to attack the Sin domain. Bai Xiaowen began to bluff, but he seemed to be a man of few words. His bluffing methods were ever-changing, and varied from person to person. For a smart person like Viscount Dennis who had a certain strategic foresight, there was no need to say everything clearly, and let him understand it on his own. It was better than Bai Xiaowen's persuasion. Viscount Dennis began to attack himself. "Count Dior." "No, soon it will be Duke Dior." What the Duke said was right. After this battle, the remnant people's vitality had been greatly damaged. They were no longer a threat. Meanwhile, the Lord of Pestilence, who has always been a headache, is completely restrained by the White Stone region's ultimate plague nemesis drug. In today's battle, the Lord of Pestilence retreated without a fight. This is the best evidence. If we can obtain the technical support of Whitestone region, the Empire's vanguard will have at least a 70% chance of driving those undead monsters back to the underground world. Thinking of this, the way Viscount Dennis looked at Bai Xiaowen became much more fervent. In Viscount Dennis's eyes, this young Duke Dior exuded an indescribable charm that was convincing. Looking at Viscount Dennis's eyes, Bai Xiaowen felt a little guilty. Wasn't it a bit too much to use the leaf-covering peony painting to fool male spirit world figures? I'm straight. All these thoughts flashed through his mind for 0.1 seconds, before Bai Xiaowen spoke up. All the credit for conquering Sin Domain will go to you. Whitestone region can provide enough ultimate plague nemesis for the Empire's army to conquer the north. When Viscount Dennis heard these two sentences, his heart was filled with excitement. He suppressed his emotions and said solemnly, Count Dior, you've won the friendship of the Dennis family. Ah, cheers to friendship. I'm honored. But can we talk about the price first? Bai Xiaowen revealed his unscrupulous face. The contrast between before and after was a little too big. Viscount Dennis was stunned. Oh. Okay. He was a little nervous and began to calculate in his heart. The Dennis family was an emerging aristocratic force. Compared to Count Dior, who owned the entire north, they had no power or influence. Count Dior probably wouldn't be interested in the family's little savings of gold coins. I have a younger sister, and she is a famous social butterfly in the imperial capital. I wonder if Count Dio will take a liking to her. No, I heard that White Rose Cecilia has an ambiguous relationship with this Lord Dio. Wait, I heard that White Rose Cecilia has an ambiguous relationship with this Lord Dio. I want the reserve supplies of the Empire's vanguard. Bai Xiaowen lowered his voice and said this, waking Viscount Dennis up. What? That's impossible. Viscount Dennis's first reaction was to object. Count Dior, even if you're crazy poor, you can't be greedy for military supplies. Don't you know that His Majesty hates conservative aristocrats the most? The second thing he hates is corruption. Bai Xiaowen said with a smile, Lord Commander, let me ask you. Is there a lot of supplies that can't be carried by the vanguard to conquer the sinful realm? Don't hesitate. You should have thought of it too. For example, spare military equipment, armor parts, war horses. These spare resources were stored in Black Rock City and were used to defend the city. If the Imperial Army goes on an expedition, these supplies can't be carried. They are burdens to ensure the speed and efficiency of the march. When you report the losses to the military, can't you just include these supplies in the losses? Viscount Dennis hesitated and said, No, it's still not possible. Sigh, the production of the ultimate plague's nemesis is not cheap. Bai Xiaowen looked up at the sky. Viscount Dennis was speechless for a while and said reluctantly, even if we can get through the military, His Majesty's eyes are like torches. He will definitely be able to see that something is fishy. It's okay. Just tell His Majesty the truth. This is a legitimate deal to get the technical support of the Whitestone region. Bai Xiaowen said righteously. I'm a visitor from another world. I don't want any hereditary title. These supplies will be my reward. His Majesty will definitely agree. Bai Xiaowen talked about what happened 2 years ago. At that time, Nicholas was still a prince. It was under Bai Xiaowen's bargaining that he gave out the Oath of the Black Edge Knights as a reward. Viscount Dennis finally made up his mind. He took a deep breath and said, Okay, I'll do it. That's right. Benefiting others and benefiting ourselves, why not? Bai Xiaowen smiled and put his arm around Viscount Dennis's shoulder. Let's go. It's time to dance. Many socialites in the Whitestone region are waiting for you to appear. The commander who just made a great contribution, Your Excellency Dennis. The socialites in the Whitestone region were almost all mediocre compared to the imperial capital. Only Cecilia had good looks and temperament. However, Viscount Dennis knew Cecilia's identity and did not dare to act rashly. At the thought that the credit for defeating the remnant army fell on his head, Dennis was intoxicated. Even looking at these vulgar women, he found them much more adorable. On the third day after the celebration party, the special envoy from the imperial capital arrived on a galloping horse. He brought 2 decrees from Nicholas IV. He officially conferred the title of Duke to the Lord of the Northern Region, Dior Kale Bloom, and conferred the title of Countess to the Lord of the White Stone Region, Cecilia. He rewarded the commander, Viscount Dennis, affirmed his plan for the northern expedition to the Sinful Realm, and urged the Northern Region to provide as much support as possible. Chapter 1104. Nicholas IV chose his words carefully. After all, the northern land was Bai Xiaowen's territory, so he used the word urge instead of order in the hope that Bai Xiaowen would cooperate. Of course, the northern expedition would also be of great benefit to the northern land. Nicholas IV was not worried that Bai Xiaowen would hold him back. This time, Bai Xiaowen spent 2 days to return to Earth. Now that the basic threat in the northern land had been mostly eliminated, and masters from various industries had settled in and were on the right track, Cecilia could finally return to Earth regularly. Cecilia conveyed the latest news of the Cane Plain. White Stone Hill worked overtime to produce a large number of ultimate plague nemesis. Viscount Dennis gave up all the cumbersome supplies, including spare military supplies, and only let the soldiers carry their military equipment and armor. They pulled hundreds of large wooden barrels and embarked on the northern expedition. The Empire used White Stone Hill as a transit station, constantly sending supplies to ensure that Viscount Dennis's supplies could be maintained. One thing needed to be clear. Bai Xiaowen had already ordered that the Empire's supplies would not be taken. He had dealt with the Emperor many times and knew how to act appropriately. White Stone Hill was also constantly producing new barrels of ultimate plague nemesis, which were transported along with the supplies of the army. The Holy Light priests from the imperial capital also participated in the northern expedition. Cardinal Arlo was the leader of this group of priests. The imperial army's northern expedition did not encounter any decent resistance. On the contrary, the dangerous natural environment caused more casualties. In the end, the imperial army chased the enemies in the northern land to a place called the Abyss Breach. This was another passage between the underground world and the surface world, similar to the Vesuvius gold mine passage in the Shisha province. As the Empire was not familiar with the underground world, they had no plans to conquer it. Cardinal Arlo cooperated with Viscount Dennis to seal the Abyss Breach. At this point, the northern land was safe, and the Gorse Empire no longer had any external threats. They could rest assured and reorganize their internal affairs and promote reforms. This situation is the most advantageous for us. Bai Xiaowen spoke with assurance to his teammates. Beside him, Xiao Jun also listened. We have territory in Cane. In the short term, the unification of the Cane dimension is not in our interest. We don't know what will happen to the territory after the unification, but the most likely outcome is that the territory will be remodeled and the ownership will no longer belong to me. That's why I hid the detailed map of the underground world military department that I got from Matriarch Cynthia. Of course, Nicholas IV might not be willing to send troops to the underground world even if we hand over the map. After all, the Gorse Empire still has a lot of internal problems. He wants to focus on reform and turn this country into a powerful empire with centralized power. When Xiao Jun heard this, she raised her hand and said, "Brother, according to what you said, Nicholas IV is a man of great talent and vision. He must be constantly thinking about the underground world. After the reformation of the empire is completed and the empire becomes stronger, he should still launch a war against the underground world." Well said. Bai Xiaowen nodded approvingly. But that will be a matter of at least a few years later. We can rely on the territory and the shops to make huge profits. Moreover, even if the Cane Plain is to be unified, it should be done by our people. Only we can enjoy the benefits of the unification of the Cane Plain. The matter in the north has come to an end. We can finally let Sister Sai stay here and prepare for the league. The playoffs against the Lonely Hearts Battle team will start in 2 days, Li Shui said. Well, let's open the treasure chests dropped by the higher-ups of the remnant army first and see how lucky we are. Bai Xiaowen waved his hand, and 3 gold treasure chests appeared. As for the other silver treasure chests, they had been opened in advance, so there was not much to be gained. In view of the powerful strength of the White Phoenix battle team and the influence of the Plague's nemesis drug on the higher-ups of the Remnant army, these 3 gold treasure chests were graded C, so they would not be left empty. Li Shi, Xiao Jun, and Cecilia each drew one. Li Shi drew the treasure chest of Crichton the Skullcutter. It contained a hideous necklace made of skulls. It was called Crichton's Skull Necklace. It was a gold equipment and bound when picked up. It added 3 points of dexterity and the White Bone Shield skill. White Bone Shield, after active activation, summon 4 layers of bone shields to surround oneself. The next 4 attacks received will be reduced by 40%. Cooldown time is 12 hours. The skull necklace was not bad, but the design was too hideous. Li Shi was determined not to take it. She had the more powerful invincible slash and the void ring, so she did not need the additional defensive skill of the White Bone Shield. Unfortunately, the equipment requirement was too high, so Xiao Jun could not use it. Han Su could not use it because the parts of the King of the Deep set occupied the necklace slot. In the end, the skull necklace was given to Cecilia. She still needed a piece of dexterity equipment with defensive characteristics. Xiao Jun also drew a gold equipment, and it was a weapon, the giant hammer used by the Orc warlord, Gatman the Crusher. Shattered Bones, bound when picked up, equipment grade, hero, gold, equipment requirement, base strength 40, equipment position, two-handed, attribute, additional attack power 18 to 43, additional skill, crush, passive. For every successful hit, there is a 0 to 15% chance of crushing the target directly and a 0 to 45% chance of inflicting a crippling effect. The higher the strength of the wielder and the lower the physique of the target, the higher the chance of triggering. Durability, 37/45. Description: there are still remnants of steel and flesh on the Shattered Bones hammer. TSK. This crush passive doesn't say trigger with normal attacks, right? Bai Xiaowen sucked in a cold breath. That means it can be triggered with skills. If it's used with AoE skills like Cleave or Whirlwind Slash, it's quite overpowered. Soldier Death Weapon. Premium Gold. His teammates gave their comments one after another. What a pity. This is such a good piece of gold equipment, and it's the favorite of violent warriors. No one in our team fits the requirements. Bai Xiaowen sighed. Wait a minute, Qiao Rui said. If we're talking about a strength-type warrior, isn't there one? Everyone looked at Xiao Jun with a strange expression. Xiao Jun looked confused. She has to be at least level 7 to use this hammer, right? The requirements are too high. Bai Xiaowen shook his head. If the 10 free attribute points were added to strength, she could use it 2 levels earlier. However, it was definitely not wrong to add physique in the early stages. In order to use the Shattered Bones hammer 2 levels earlier, if she didn't add physique, Xiao Jun would only be able to use less than 100 HP to explore the spiritual realm, if she wasn't fighting solo and didn't have the double bonus from the Battle of Glory. The margin for error was too low. Not necessarily, Qiao Rui said. Xiao Jun's foundation is very solid. She hasn't used any strengthening potions yet, right? The top-notch strength potions at the Awakened stage can add 5 strength points per bottle. She should be able to take 3 bottles, right? In addition, she can also collect precious meat from mutated beasts to eat. Accumulated meat can add 10 attribute points. She'll choose strength-type precious meat. This way, Xiao Jun will be able to equip this hammer around level 3. Yeah, Awakened people level up very quickly in the early stages, Li Shi agreed. The only pity is that the hammer is bound when picked up. Xiao Jun isn't a member, so she can't use it directly. However, it's just a matter of using a golden beeswax. Qiao Rui waved his hand domineeringly. It's decided. Captain, what do you think? Oh, okay. Bai Xiaowen nodded. Chapter 1105. In the end, Cecilia drew the treasure chest of the plague messenger, Lich Gowers. This time, there was no equipment. Instead, it was a box covered in mysterious patterns that exuded a frosty aura. The lid of the box could not be opened. There were only a few words in the description. Cold box, special item. Why does it look like a class advancement treasure? Li Shi muttered. It does look like it. Wait, let me test the strength of the psionic particles. Bai Xiaowen took out the high-end psionic camera, aimed it at the cold box, and turned on the detection mode. The psionic camera emitted a beam of white light that swept across the cold box. Beep beep. The sound was very pleasant at the moment. The psionic particle strength is up to standard. It's a class advancement treasure. Bai Xiaowen shook his head. What a coincidence. Xiaojun has just completed her class advancement, and we've already gotten a new class advancement treasure. It's not a waste. The carved jade wall has much higher energy intensity than this cold box, and the class it gives is also stronger. Even if we had this class advancement treasure in advance, we wouldn't be willing to let Xiaojun use it for class advancement, Qiao Rui said. Everyone nodded in unison. Everyone could see the power of the Guardian of the Dragon Jade class. It was definitely one of the best among the hero classes. Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, "Don't underestimate the value of the cold box. We can provide a one-stop service. The full set has a high probability of guaranteeing a hero class." What do you mean? Qiao Rui was puzzled. Bai Xiaowen, which plane do you think a quasi-awaken will most likely be matched to at the cold box? This. Logically speaking, the Cain plane is the place where class advancement treasures are produced, so the matching priority is the highest. However, the Cain plane is in the later stage, and the general level is very high. It's not suitable for quasi-awaken to enter. Qiao Rui was confused. Bai Xiaowen said, "What you're talking about is only the mainstream level. There are actually differences in levels in different regions. It was just like when I was first assigned to the Aran plane. Back in the Lionheart Empire, there was already a level 7 leader like Gria. But in the Northlands, which was the border, there were only level 1 to level 3 soldiers. The more desolate and dilapidated an area was, the more likely it was for low-level spirit world beings to appear. Therefore, the would-be awakened are likely to be matched with a rundown town at the border of the Cain Plain to undergo a profession change." After a pause, Bai Xiaowen continued, "As long as a communication device is given in advance, the would-be awakened can quickly contact the White Stone region after entering Cain. Wouldn't it be easy to send a team of White Stone region soldiers to help him pass the awakening mission?" With the average strength of the White Stone region soldiers at level 7 and above, they would be able to flatten all the way to those level 1 to level 3 occupation transition areas. There were also unexpected situations. What if the would-be awakened entered the underground world or a place that was so far away from the Northland province that they would not be able to reach within 10 days? That was why Bai Xiaowen had said that there was a high probability that they would become a hero. The cold chest itself was just an ordinary treasure for the profession change. However, when paired with the White Stone region's unique one-stop profession change service, it could be sold at a sky-high price. Everyone was still unsatisfied, but the lottery was already over. In the next 2 days, the White Phoenix team once again immersed themselves in intense training. The first round of the playoffs had finally arrived. Jinghai Base City, Gymnasium. It was late at night. The lights were bright, and there were no empty seats. In the past, the Second Division League was played during the day. A primetime evening slot like this was generally treated like the First Division League. On the one hand, the competition's popularity had increased, and the rivalries had increased. On the other hand, the time period was suitable. Tonight's gymnasium was much better than the sparse scene of 2s and 3s from before. The Second Division League's playoffs were also quite exciting. Not only were there a lot of live spectators, but they would also be presented in front of all the audience through a national broadcast. Correspondingly, the teams that could win first place in the Second Division League would also gain a wave of skyrocketing fame, accumulating a certain fan base for their promotion to the First Division League. Hello, dear audience and friends. Welcome to Lingyuan 1997-98, the postseason elimination round of the Huaxiao Awaken Development League. This is the first round of the playoffs. The third-seeded team from the Southwest region, the Lone Heart team, has come from afar to challenge the second-seeded team from our Southeast region, the White Phoenix team. I am the commentator, Fantasy/Glutinous Rice Ball. The electronic applause and cheers drove the atmosphere of the stadium. Light sticks and support light signs were waved, like a boiling sea. The words on the light signs were generally by Xiaowen, me, you and so on. The female fans waving these light signs, when the camera turned, most of them lowered their heads shyly. However, there were also fierce female fans who deliberately shouted at the camera, Xiaowen, I want to give birth to monkeys for you and so on. The White Phoenix team also had a large number of male fans. After all, this was a team with 3 beautiful female heroes. The 3 female heroes each had their own characteristics. No matter which one, to ordinary people, they were all goddess-like existences. The male commentator, Fantasy, was an exquisite uncle with a mustache. Due to the ranking, the White Phoenix team has won the opportunity to fight on their home ground. We sincerely hope that the White Phoenix team can defend the glory of the Southeast region in Jinghai Base City. At the same time, we also wish the Lone Heart team to be able to play their own style. The female commentator, Glutinous Rice Ball, was like her name. Some parts of her body that could not be described were quite round. There is a big difference between the playoffs and the regular season. First of all, the competition system is no longer a BO3, but a BO5. In addition, in order to ensure the viewing of the battle and to test the comprehensiveness of the participating teams, the competition mode that has already been used will directly enter the default ban position and will not appear in the remaining matches. In other words, in this round of BO5, there would not be 2 repeated competition modes. Fantasy, next is the preparation time for the players. During this time, we will explain to the audience that does not understand the 6 major modes of the competition. Just as the male and female commentators were explaining, in the player lounge of the Lone Heart team, the coach was also cheering for the team members. We have a big advantage. The coach coughed. Everyone, don't be intimidated by the White Phoenix team's luxurious lineup and their regular season record. After all, they are a new team entering the playoffs for the first time. In terms of experience, they can't compare to us. In addition, they should have seen the final match between us and Tianhu. It is very likely that they will underestimate us. This is the point that we can use. The coach of the Lone Heart team waved his hand vigorously. In this match, as long as we can take advantage of the opponent's underestimation of us and obtain a victory first, the 2 powerful items that we have prepared can be put to use. At that time, even if the White Phoenix team wants to take it seriously, it will be too late. The regular season is just training. The playoffs are the real battlefield. Let these newcomers who have just left school experience the intensity of the playoffs in the professional arena. Roar! The team members waved their fists in unison. Chapter 1106. On the other side, the atmosphere in White Phoenix's player lounge was more relaxed. We all know Lonely Heart's strength, so let's cut to the chase. Bai Xiaowen waved his hand and said, this is the first match since Cecilia's return. It's also the first time our team has a complete lineup since the second half of the league. 3-0. Don't give them any unrealistic illusions. Ring ring ring, it's time for the players to prepare. Players from both teams, please come on stage. In the stadium, cheers and applause were heard as the players from both teams entered the arena. As White Phoenix's finale, Bai Xiaowen received the loudest applause. Next, under the guidance of the commentators, the captains of both teams stepped forward to draw the match mode. Lonely Heart Band Conquest mode, which was the most disadvantageous to them. Once they drew Conquest, the best of 5 solo matches would be a disaster. Who didn't know that White Phoenix had 4 hero professions? Bai Xiaowen chose the no-ban mode. This move attracted another round of exclamations. Tan Cheng, the captain of Lonely Heart, secretly clenched his fists and applauded. Just as the coach said, the other team had become arrogant and underestimated the enemy. Then in this first match, I'll give you a head-on blow. Then in the second or third match, I'll use my ultimate move to crush you with a combination of punches and let you know the cruelty of the playoffs. The numbers on the big screen scrolled and finally stopped. Solo match, Defender mode. Wow, it's Defender mode, also known as KOF mode. The male commentator smiled fantastically and said, "This is also the mode with the strongest individual hero flavor, there's no other mode." Let's look forward to the lineups of both teams, as well as the upcoming fierce battle. Leaving aside the Lonely Hearts lineups, on White Phoenix's side, Bai Xiaowen directly stopped everyone who was eager to try. "Since we've drawn the Defender mode, I'll go first." "Ah. Will we still have a chance to play then?" Li Shi said. "In order to avoid any mishaps in the best of 5, it's safest for me to go first," Bai Xiaowen said with a smile. Psychological warfare starts from the ban phase. The no-ban mode is only the first step. I want to break the opponent's mentality and pave the way for the later matches. There's nothing more explosive than a 1v5. All the team members expressed their approval. Li Shi even took out melon seeds and stools from his storage space and sat in the front row to watch. When the male commentator, Fantasy, received the matchup for the first match, he could not help but reveal a shocked expression. Then, with a pitiful gaze, he glanced at the starting member of Lone Heart Battle Team, Support Jia Zhe. Starting lineup for White Phoenix Battle Team, Captain Bai Xiaowen. Now, please take a look at the big screen. There is information about contestant Bai Xiaowen's career, as well as the data and highlights of the regular season. Cheers erupted from the audience. Bai Xiaowen's highlights were all classic scenes, such as entering the arena alone and fighting against 5 opponents, airdropping to provide support at the speed of light, and even accurately predicting and miraculously responding to the enemy's skills. It was as if he had cheated. Then, the female commentator Tang Yuan continued, Team Lone Heart's starting lineup is the support, contestant Jia Zhe. Jia Zhe's lips trembled, and his face turned pale. Compared to Jia Zhe's moment of glory, it was so shabby that it was unbearable to look at. The contestants from both sides entered the arena. The arena map generated by the psionic ability training ground was limited to a space of 1000 by 1000 meter. Different terrains and landforms would appear randomly, but there would not be any powerful wild monsters. The first battle began. Jia Zhe was originally a spirit user, but in front of Bai Xiaowen, whose spirit attribute was several levels higher, he was completely deaf and blind. After Bai Xiaowen detected Jia Zhe's position, he immediately launched a thunderous attack and airdrop to seal off Jia Zhe's escape route. As a support of a strong team in Division 2, Jia Zhe's overall strength was not weak. He was much stronger than Old Monster. However, in front of Bai Xiaowen, he still appeared pitiful, weak, and helpless. He could not even kill a summoned creature. The ranged and melee fighters, including Bai Xiaowen, attacked Jia Zhe from full HP to negative HP after a round of firepower. Bai Xiaowen's control was too precise. The pace of this round of attacks was completely consistent, and Jia Zhe did not even have the chance to heal himself. What the F***CK, the battle started 27 seconds ago, and the outcome was already decided. This should be the fastest solo match I've ever played. 25 of those seconds were used to search for the target. I feel sorry for Jia Zhe. He probably didn't even see Bai Xiaowen before a group of monsters appeared around him. The next second, his vision turned black. The audience was in a heated discussion. Bai Xiaowen was the first to go on stage. In the arena mode, the strength of the summoner class was vividly displayed. If it were a normal summoner with similar strength, the Lone Heart squad would still be able to fight. After all, a normal summoner would need a skill slot to sign a contract with a summoned creature, just like Bai Xiaowen's summoning claw and the awakening skill of the Wolf Valley. Ordinary summoners could only summon a small number of creatures, only 2 or 3. Learning some special summoning skills, they could rely on a single skill to summon multiple creatures, such as Ghost Portal, Cat Demon Summon, Dog Demon Command, and so on. The number of summoned creatures would be larger. However, it was impossible to have an army of summoned creatures like Bai Xiaowen. If there were only a few summoned creatures, the opponent hunter could still find an opportunity to kill the summoner through positioning and skills to win. If the summoner was difficult to kill, then they could desperately change a few summoned creatures to create conditions for the next attacker to win. But in the face of a small army with a clear division of labor and tacit understanding, how to position, how to exchange lives. The Lone Heart team was the second to send out a mage, trying to reduce Bai Xiaowen's HP through long-range firepower. However, the Skeleton Sword Shield Warrior's airdrop made him stagger under the shield bash, unable to cast spells. This mage's positioning was indeed excellent, and he also had 2 instantaneous escape skills, but it was useless. 2, and 2 more. 3 consecutive Skeletal Swordsman airdrops caused the mage to die before he could even complete his channeling. Looking at the mage unwillingly turning into white light, Bai Xiaowen smiled. He still had 4 Skeleton Sword Shield Warriors that he hadn't used yet. In addition, Skeleton Warrior, Undead Demon Arcane Master, Evil Ghost, Wrath Claw, Butcher. Which one of them didn't have the ability to interrupt? The mage class was definitely a piece of cake. Before they could force Bai Xiaowen to use his trump card, they had already lost 2 people. Everyone in the Lone Heart team was cursing in their hearts. "I'll go." The captain of the Lone Heart team, Tan Cheng, sighed and stood up. "That's the only way. If the others go up, they're just food." If Tan Cheng is ranked last, even if he can defeat Bai Xiaowen, there are still 4 players in the White Phoenix team. They can't fight. The coach also sighed. Why was it so difficult? Tan Cheng's appearance caused a burst of low exclamations. King to king, the most exciting showdown was about to happen. Chapter 1107. The psionic training ground regenerated into a combat map. This time, it was an ancient Roman-style arena. The field was completely bare, without even a single pillar to block their line of sight. Bai Xiaowen had already heard that the next challenger was Tan Cheng. His face was as calm as an ancient well. With a flash of light, Tan Cheng appeared about 300 meters in front of him. "A new boss, you live up to your reputation." There was a hint of admiration in Tan Cheng's voice. Everyone was a hero, but hero classes were also divided into different levels. Some hero classes did not have exclusive equipment. They only had a slight advantage in attribute growth and skills compared to elites. They were considered bottom-tier heroes. Some hero classes had exclusive equipment. It was equivalent to having an additional piece of equipment that surpassed dark gold. They even had an additional skill system. They were considered powerful heroes. However, there were very few hero classes that had the ability to unify an entire dimension. These heroes were the bosses. There was still some time before the battle began. Bai Xiaowen was not in a hurry. He smiled and said, "You flatter me. Boss, you have to go easy on me. At least, you can't let me lose too badly. Please don't use your summon creatures to gang up on me," Tan Cheng said. 3, 2, 1. During the countdown of the battle system, Bai Xiaowen scanned Tan Cheng with his insight. Tan Cheng, hero level 9, race, humanoid/human, class, spiked armored warrior, attributes, strength 80, agility 42, constitution 50, spirit 31, class skill, spike armor, passive. Your additional defense is increased by 20%. Physical damage received is decreased by 20%. Skills, thunder suppression, shattering throw, shield wall. Bai Xiaowen shook his head. "You're not honest. These attributes, this class passive. Would he be afraid of being ganged up on?" Bai Xiaowen had collected information about Tan Cheng beforehand. It was similar to what he saw with his insight, but more detailed. This guy's class skill, Spike Armor, had been strengthened twice at level 4 and level 7. It had the ability to automatically reflect physical damage. Most of Bai Xiaowen's summoned creatures were physical damage types. If Bai Xiaowen sent all of them to gang up on Tan Cheng would probably wake up laughing in his dreams. It was precisely because of the relatively strong survivability of the class passive that Tan Cheng had put all his effort into strengthening his damage output. He had become a violent tank that struck fear in the hearts of people in the B-League. He was tanky and had high damage output. The opponents of the Lone Heart Battle team often had a headache dealing with Tan Cheng. If it weren't for the fact that the other members of the Lone Heart Battle team were relatively weak, this team definitely wouldn't have achieved their current results. They would have had a chance to enter the top 3 of the 2nd Division League. As for Tan Cheng himself, he had long since received an olive branch from more than one class A guild. Moreover, they had promised him that he would be one of the first players to join them. Therefore, the Lone Heart Battle team was jokingly called an orphanage, and Tan Cheng was the orphanage's director who had been hugged until his thigh was broken. However, Bai Xiaowen had a unique method to deal with a heavy warrior like Tan Cheng, Evil Ghost. In addition, the endless stream of control skills was a nightmare for awakened ones like Tan Cheng. Without hesitation, I summoned Evil Ghost and began to draw mana. Feeling his spiritual power drain, Tan Cheng's expression changed. His total spiritual power was only a pitiful 31 points. After casting a set of 4 skills, he was basically out of mana. Having his spiritual power drained meant that he couldn't use all his combat skills. Tan Cheng would rather lose blood than have his mana drained. However, Tan Cheng also knew that Evil Ghost was a scoundrel. Ordinary physical attacks wouldn't work at all. He directly leaped high and used Thunder Crushing Strike. Tan Cheng's whole body was wrapped in electric light. He heavily smashed onto Evil Ghost's head, surging electric light surging. Other than being stunned, the baleful ghost also suffered double the damage from the electric shock, killing it instantly. Although he had dealt with Evil Ghost in one blow, there was no smile on Tan Cheng's face. On the contrary, Bai Xiaowen's mouth revealed a trace of a smile. He deliberately placed Evil Ghost alone so that Tan Cheng's Thunder Crushing Strike only hit Evil Ghost. Evil Ghost's displacement skill had been replaced with Thunder Crushing Strike. Not to mention, Tan Cheng also consumed spiritual power to cast skills. Boom! The huge butcher descended from the sky. The moment he landed, he activated Rotting Poison. Its huge body blocked Tan Cheng's charge. The poison fog also slowed Tan Cheng down, making him feel as if he was in a swamp. Bai Xiaowen waved his hand to summon Skeletal Fiend. At the same time, Cold Winter Wand began to charge up. 2 long-range spellcasters cast spells at the same time. Thunder Crushing Strike would temporarily interrupt Tan Cheng's movements. Frost Shards would further slow Tan Cheng down. More importantly, Thunder Crushing Strike, Frost Shards, and Fatty's Rotting Poison were all magic damage. Tan Cheng's prided himself on his high armor and ability to reduce physical damage was useless in front of these types of damage. Even if he activated the active effect of Bramble Armor, he could only reflect physical damage. Even if Tan Cheng activated the acceleration skill of his shoes, he couldn't break through Butcher's blockade. This big guy seemed to be intelligent. He could always predict the enemy's movements and block Tan Cheng's path in advance. This made Tan Cheng feel so uncomfortable that he wanted to vomit blood. I heard that shaman mentors can control summon creatures. It's true. Tan Cheng was speechless. How can a summoner be so good at close combat? Under Bai Xiaowen's control, Butcher waved his giant snake scepter to block left and right. Tan Cheng's greatsword couldn't break through. Occasionally, he could hit 1 or 2, but Butcher relied on his thick skin and poison to reduce damage. He was as steady as a mountain. Boom! Tan Cheng suddenly gripped his greatsword with both hands and slammed it into the ground. A cone-shaped shockwave rushed out and stunned Butcher. Shockwave! He didn't see any insight, but there were records of this powerful skill. It had both damage and area of effect. The skill was very cool, but Tan Cheng's heart was bleeding. A shockwave only managed to stun a butcher. What a failure. However, if he didn't use shockwave, he wouldn't be able to get past Butcher's defense. He wouldn't be able to touch Bai Xiaowen's clothes. He was destined to lose. Tan Cheng had no choice but to do so. Tan Cheng passed Butcher's block. After getting rid of the decaying debuff, he used some equipment skill and his speed increased explosively. Like a wild boar, he crashed into Bai Xiaowen. Bai Xiaowen stood calmly on the spot. He reached out and aimed at Tan Cheng. A blue talisman flew out. Imprisonment. Tan Cheng gritted his teeth. His body flashed, and he got rid of the debuff without slowing down. He rushed in front of Bai Xiaowen, but the latter activated deterrence. Tan Cheng's body froze on the spot again. His eyes turned red. His body flashed again, and he got rid of the debuff again. He was already in close combat range. Tan Cheng thought to himself. He gripped his greatsword tightly with both hands and slashed down. Golden light flashed. Tan Cheng suddenly realized that he couldn't make an effective attack. His hands seemed to be tied by invisible ropes. The additional skill of the golden pattern Jade Belt, Spirit Snake Whip, was activated. This time, Bai Xiaowen chose the binding effect instead of the immobilization effect. After all, even if Tan Cheng was immobilized, Bai Xiaowen would have to waste time moving to escape. It was better to just bind his hands and not move. You can't hit me even if you just watch. Tan Cheng was angry. He raised his leg and kicked wildly. However, without the additional attack of a weapon, the damage from his kicks and punches was a bit low. Not to mention, Bai Xiaowen had airdropped a shadow assassin in front of him to block his path. Kick all you want. If you can kick a shadow assassin to death with half the damage it takes, you win. Bai Xiaowen stood within Tan Cheng's melee range and channeled the skill at a moderate pace. Frost shards, multiple shards, and a layer of glacial spikes. The necromancer added lightning strike. With a boom, Tan Cheng fell to the ground. Chapter 1108. In the stadium, there was a wave of applause. After all, this was White Phoenix's home ground. This was Jinghai, and the audience would only support the local teams. Furthermore, the White Phoenix battle team was so strong, and the members of the team were all good-looking. Even Old Han was a man with sharp edges, and he had a lot of fans chasing after him. He even recently got the nickname Captain. Such a local battle team with both good looks and strength was definitely worthy of fans. Is it my imagination? Bai Xiaowen didn't seem to use much strength to defeat Tan Cheng. Tan Cheng is too useless. They're both heroes and captains, but the gap is too big. The discussion was fierce. On the commentary platform, the male commentator Fantasy cleared his throat. Okay, the battle is over. The winner is still Bai Xiaowen. This battle was very exciting. Captain Tan Cheng's strength is actually very strong. It's a pity that he met a stronger opponent and appeared weak. Did you notice that when a hero has one more exclusive equipment than the opponent, their combat strength will be very strong? Fantasy said. The female commentator Tang Yuan was also an awakened, so she had a clearer understanding of Tan Cheng's strength. Captain Bai is too well-rounded. Although most of his summon creatures are physical damage types, he doesn't lack magic damage because he can also be a magician. Originally, Tan Cheng would have the advantage against any physical opponents, but in front of Captain Bai, his thorn armor is almost useless. Fantasy, Captain Bai Xiaowen used the evil ghost to lure out Tan Cheng's thunderous attack. From the position of the evil ghost, it's obvious that he deliberately sold the evil ghost to replace Tan Cheng's only movement skill. Too subtle. Tang Yuan blushed slightly. It's not subtle. For Captain Bai, it's a basic move. Bai Xiaowen had won many battles and had many fans in Jinghai. In fact, Tang Yuan was one of them. How dare you say that my idol is too subtle? I can't take this lying down. On the live broadcast, when the male and female commentators discussed the subtle issue, the bullet screen was immediately flooded with comments. Commentator Chin say, "I'm calling the police." The male commentator Fantasy coughed. "Next, let's invite the Lone Hearts team to send out their fourth attacker." Bullet screen 1. "Next, let's invite the Lone Heart squad to deliver the fourth kill." Bullet screen 2. "A family should be neat and tidy. Go!" Bullet screen 3. "I want to recite a poem." Tan Cheng's defeat was a very clear signal that Lone Heart battle team could not win. The remaining 2 contestants went on stage one after another with bitter faces. They were easily defeated by Bai Xiaowen. That archer had almost broken the record for the shortest solo by a support from the same team. 1 against 5. The White Phoenix team won the first match. More importantly, with this crushing 1 versus 5 victory, the mentality of the Lone Heart battle team had also collapsed. How was he supposed to fight? How else could they fight? The opponent did not have a ban, and only sent 1 person to crush our entire team. This kind of crushing strength is something that no amount of intelligence can make up for. The rest of the competition could only be described with 1 word: irresistible. With the default ban for the Defender mode and the Lone Heart battle team banning the Conquest mode, the White Phoenix team completely defeated the Lone Heart battle team in the 2-team battles. They defeated their opponents with a score of 3-0 and advanced into the top 8 with high spirits. The commentator was impassioned and the audience was jubilant. However, the 5 members of the White Phoenix team looked calm. Although they were just a new team, compared to the various big scenes that the White Phoenix team had experienced in the spiritual world, defeating the Lone Heart battle team was really nothing. It was a basic operation. It was not strange to win, but it was strange to lose. There were still post-match interviews, autograph requests from the audience, and so on. The 5 members of the White Phoenix team did not put on any airs and tried to satisfy as much as possible. Why do I feel that signing autographs is more tiring than competing? In the car on the way back, Li Shi shook his wrist and said with a bitter face, "Ha, that's just your psychological effect." Bai Xiaowen said with a chuckle, "Our popularity is rising. The nationwide broadcast of the playoffs is really awesome. After we win the championship, we'll come back to the roulette and see if we can get a high-end ticket to the spiritual world. We're in the top 8 now. Who are we going to fight next?" Li Shi asked. Bai Xiaowen shook his head. "The top 16 is not over yet. We'll have to wait until next week, when the top 8 are all revealed. Then we'll have to draw lots. This is also the only time we'll draw lots in the playoffs." The top 16 matches were over. The matches were basically as predicted. There were no upsets. The first and second seeds in the home games of each division had basically defeated the challengers from afar and successfully advanced to the top 8. However, there was an exception, and that was the Elite Martial team. As the 3rd seed in the Southeast Division, the Elite Martial team had successfully defeated the 2nd seed in the Southwest Division, Haifeng Battle Team, and advanced to the top 8. This was considered normal. After all, the Elite Martial team was originally a strong team and even had the ability to compete for the top 3 spots in the playoffs. If the Southeast Division had not relegated the Silver Frost Battle Team and the emergence of the White Phoenix Battle Team, the Elite Martial team would have been the 1st seed in the Southeast Division. There were 3 spots in the top 8. This result made many fans in the Southeast Division rejoice. If the League A had such results, the fans would wake up laughing in their dreams. The League B was slightly lacking, but it was still considered an honor in the division. Following closely was the drawing of lots for the top 8 matches. The officials did not force the 8 squadrons to travel across the country to gather. No one wanted to spend that kind of unnecessary cost. Instead, they made a compromise and allowed the top 8 squadrons to gather in their respective regions. Then, they would draw lots through an online video conference. This process was absolutely fair, and there would not be any tricks. If someone were to play tricks, the rules of the spiritual realm would not recognize the fairness of this year's competition, and the rewards would not be given out. At that time, the officials in the top 3 would be furious, and the pressure of pursuing responsibility was not something that any organization or individual could bear. The 3 teams, Silver Frost, White Phoenix, and the elite Marshall team, gathered in the Southeast Division's Jinling base city. There were a total of 8 numbers. They were A1, A2, B1, B2, and so on. The teams that got the same number would enter the same group and meet in the top 8 elimination matches. The top 4 matches would be the winners of Group A against the winners of Group B, and the winners of Group C against the winners of Group D. After that, it would be the third-place match in the finals of the championship and runner-up matches. Therefore, this was the only drawing of lots. Just as Bai Xiaowen said, this drawing of lots was very important. In the live broadcast, under the watchful eyes of the audience, the official host finished explaining the details of the drawing of lots and the rest of the competition. Then, he invited the representatives of each team to come forward. The Southeast Division was the first to draw lots, starting with the third-place team, the elite Marshall team. The representative of the elite Marshall team, Wu Guangzong, moved the controller in front of the computer. The wheel on the big screen spun rapidly. Following the host's instructions, he moved the wheel again. The wheel slowly slowed down and then stopped. Wu Guangzong got D2. The elite Marshall team was placed in Group D. If I get D1, it'll be interesting. With this thought, Bai Xiaowen went on stage. After the turntable on the screen came to a stop, it suddenly stopped at C1. Oh, we won't meet the elite Marshall team in the top 8. If the elite Marshall team enters the top 4, we'll meet in the semi-finals. Bai Xiaowen smiled. He looked at the elite Marshall team's representative, Wu Guangzong's uncertain expression. He did not say anything provocative because there was no need to. Chapter 1109. Bai Xiaowen didn't want to talk, but someone beside him took the initiative to talk. Hello, Bai Xiaowen. Bai Xiaowen looked up. The speaker was a handsome youth with a buzz cut and a silver earring on his left ear. You're from Silver Frost? Bai Xiaowen saw the Silver Frost logo on the youth's chest. Let me introduce myself. I'm Silver Frost's captain, Xia Hangyang. The youth with the earring called Xia Hangyang took the initiative to extend his hand. White Phoenix's momentum is very strong this year. I hope we won't meet in advance. The finals are the best stage. I feel the same. Bai Xiaowen also extended his hand. That depends on Captain Xia's luck. Xia Hangyang smiled. After shaking hands, he got up and walked onto the stage. Perhaps it was the will of the heavens, but in the end, Xia Hangyang drew Group A1. The crowd was in an uproar. The host had already explained the competition process after the lots were drawn. Now, the 3 teams from the Southeast region wouldn't meet in the first round. Especially the strongest teams, Silver Frost and White Phoenix. One Group A and the other Group C, they wouldn't meet before the finals. From the performance of these 2 teams, it was even possible for them to meet in the finals. Bai Xiaowen continued to watch. Then came the live broadcast of the other region's lots. He was more concerned about White Phoenix's opponents in the quarterfinals. After the Northeast region's lots were drawn, Bai Xiaowen also saw the results. The Northeast region's second seed, Hua Xian, drew Group C2. Many people in the audience saw Hua Xian's representative's expression collapse when he saw the number on the screen. It was as if he had nothing left to live for. This scene was also screenshotted by many witty people online and added all kinds of parody text. Some people even wanted to take a picture of Bai Xiaowen's expression. After all, he didn't draw the first seed. He should be very happy. It would be best if he was ecstatic and carried away. If White Phoenix was defeated, they could pull out their corpses and whip them. For example, that smile that laughed until 99 years of spiritual source, which was next year, and so on. However, Bai Xiaowen's expression was calm. It didn't matter which team they were drawn against. For a team that wanted to win the championship, it was just a matter of time. Since he had drawn Hua Xian, he decided to study the team's information first. After the drawing of lots, Bai Xiaowen returned to Jinghai from Jinling. However, he unexpectedly received a piece of news from the guild. News from the Great Southwest. The government had sent out an investigation team. 4 of them were missing, and only one of them managed to escape. There were 2 main points in the information he brought back. First, it was suspected that a large spirit world fragment had fallen in the southwest. Secondly, Southeast Asian experts had crossed the border. Did the 4 of them encounter ferocious mutated beasts? Or did they have a conflict with the Southeast Asian experts? Or were they trapped in the spirit world fragment? No one knew the answer. The officials attached great importance to this matter and contacted 2 strong A-class teams to cooperate with the military's awakened special forces to head to the Great Southwest. The White Phoenix battle team did not receive an invitation. Last time, Xiaowen seemed to have said that if the situation was urgent, the White Phoenix team would be willing to fight. Li Shi had some opinions. In the end, when something really happened, they found another team. Bai Xiaowen smiled and shook his head. "You're getting ahead of yourself, Shi." "I'm not." Bai Xiaowen's gaze moved away from Li Shi's exquisite collarbone. He smiled and said, "What's there to be angry about when the officials didn't find us? After all, we're still inexperienced. We don't have enough strength to gain the officials' full trust. But we're clearly a unified team. We should be the world's top team." Li Shi was a little unconvinced. If the officials had never contacted the White Phoenix battle team, it would have been fine. However, they had clearly looked for the White Phoenix battle team before. When something really happened, they found another team. It was obvious that they did not trust them. Bai Xiaowen said, "We haven't proven ourselves in the league yet. In addition, we found a suspected large spirit world fragment in the Great Southwest incident. It's both a crisis and an opportunity. The officials of the Awakened Association will also compete for benefits. We don't have a strong foundation, so it's normal that we don't have this opportunity. In short, let's focus on the competition. It's also a good thing that they didn't ask us to go to the Great Southwest. We don't have to waste our energy." Bai Xiaowen concluded. The quarterfinals were in a state of 2 extremes. This polarization referred to the intensity of the competition. Because at this stage, the teams no longer held back. They began to use the powerful items and team items they had prepared before the competition. It was important to note that the professional league was not like the university league. There was no need to report the use of items, no matter if the items were obtained by the team members themselves or given by the guild. It was not against the rules. The university league tested the quality of the university students themselves. It could not rely on their background. However, the professional league was a place where everything was used. Of course, before using powerful items, the teams would also weigh the pros and cons. If the difference between the enemy and their team was too obvious and the items could not be made up for, then they might as well not use them and reduce their losses. Therefore, when a strong team fought a weak team, it would be a crushing defeat. There would not be any ups and downs in the entire round, making the audience feel sleepy. However, if the 2 teams were similar in strength, then the powerful items from both sides would be used as if they were free. The competition was white-hot, and the audience even had to seize the time to go to the toilet. Most of the teams were similar in strength, so the competition could be described as exciting. Until the last moment, no one knew who would advance. Many of the audience cheered and said that although it was only the 2nd division, it was already at the level of the 1st division regular season. The White Phoenix team defeated the Hua Xian team 3 o'clock and advanced to the semifinals. The other 3 semifinals teams were Group A Silver Frost, Group B Sunset, and Group D Elite Marshall. For the audience of the Southeast region, this year was definitely worth bragging about. All 3 teams advanced. In the semifinals, there were 3 teams from the Southeast region. It was simply a dream. In fact, this was not surprising. After all, the southeast region of Huaxia had the densest population and the most prosperous economy. Most of the potential hunters were in the southeast region. Even the northeast region, where the capital was located, could only place second in the second division. Of course, the capital was mainly a gathering of first division guilds. It had little to do with the second division. If it was a competition of first division spots, the northeast region was still better because of the special status of the capital. The semi-finals were already clear. The Silver Frost team against the northeast region's first seed, the Sunset team. The White Phoenix team against the elite martial team. That night, Li Beihai invited all the members of the White Phoenix team to have a family dinner at home. When it came to the game, Bai Xiaowen thought that Li Beihai would ask the team to play hard. It would be best to beat the elite martial guild until they pissed their pants and vent their anger. Unexpectedly, Li Beihai was very calm. He just asked the White Phoenix team to put down their burdens and play to their own level. Between the words, his resentment towards the elite martial guild was not as deep as before. Sure enough, people change. In fact, Li Beihai's attitude was related to the super gods situation that was gradually improving. With the rise of the White Phoenix team, the super gods also rose, and their status in Jinghai City was rising. Li Beihai had suffered a lot of cold shoulder before. Now, the Awakened Association, other guild leaders, and even all parties were much more polite to him. It was quite a comfortable feeling of being able to benefit from both sides. No one knew when they would ask Bai Xiaowen for help. Bai Xiaowen, on the other hand, was either in the Spiritor's realm or in the training field. Although he was very famous, he rarely dealt with the outside world. As a new big shot, there was really no friendship between him and the established forces. If something happened, it would be best to ask Li Beihai as the middleman to find Bai Xiaowen. The situation had improved. Looking back, Li Beihai felt that those grievances were secondary conflicts. There was no need to seek revenge and affect the pace of his own development. Now, his biggest wish was that the White Phoenix team could rush all the way to the A-League and lead the Super Gods to become an A-League guild. Of course, this did not mean that Li Beihai had let go of the past grievances. It was just that now Li Beihai felt that his family was a golden pot and did not want to fight with a broken pot like Elite Martial, in Li Beihai's eyes. If he could see Elite Martial fall without paying any price, Li Beihai would be happy to see it. If Elite Martial fell into a well, Li Beihai would definitely be one of the people who would fill in the soil. Chapter 11:10. The semi-finals were held as scheduled. Silver Frost and Sunset were both seeded first in their respective regions. They had to draw lots to decide their home and away matches. In the end, Sunset was luckier and got their home match. Silver Frost would head to Beijing for the semi-finals. As for the other match, White Phoenix vs Jingwu, there was no such thing as home or away matches. Everyone was a team from Jinghai, so the match would be held in Jinghai base city. Therefore, after the semi-finals were announced, the officials arranged the match between White Phoenix and Jingwu to be held first. It was a derby between the same city. The atmosphere of this match was heated even before it started. That night, there were no empty seats in the stadium. Many people would rather buy standing tickets to watch the semi-finals between the two teams from the same city. Coincidentally, Li Beihai saw Wu Chonglian again when he was near the front row. The seats were arranged by the officials. It was unknown whether the officials were involved in this coincidence, but when the camera crew scanned the audience, they kept drifting towards the two presidents intentionally or unintentionally. If any sparks were to erupt between the two presidents, it would inevitably become the topic of conversation for all the spectators. Li Beihai was very Buddhist, but Wu Chonglian's mouth was full of the taste of lemon juice. Looking at Li Beihai, who was like a chimpanzee, Wu Chonglian was very puzzled as to how he had such a delicate daughter. And he had found a monstrous genius, the kind that might not appear even once in a few decades. Thinking about Hansu, he was also roped in by Bai Xiaowen. Wu Chonglian's jealousy went straight to his head. When a person's heart was sour, everything they saw would be sour. For example, when Wu Chonglian saw Li Beihai's Buddhist posture, he felt that it was fake. When he saw that Li Beihai actually didn't say anything, he felt that Li Beihai was ignoring him. He couldn't help but blurt out, "Some people shouldn't get carried away. The higher you climb, the harder you fall." Although he lowered his voice, Li Beihai still heard it. "Oh?" Li Beihai glared at him. "I didn't mess with you, but you came to mess with me? If I don't spit at you for 3 days, do you really think I'm a vegetarian?" Humph, Li Beihai's face twitched. "Even if I fall, it's better than someone who can't even get up." Wu Chonglian's sarcastic remark made him unable to stop. "Who are you talking about? When have we not been in the top 3? He's much better than you guys who are always at the bottom." "That's right. Being a dowry maidservant every year, you can also be arrogant," Li Beihai teased. "If you have the ability, why don't you enter the bridal chamber?" Wu Chonglian took a deep breath. "Li Beihai, I'll say it right now. This year, the Elite Martial Arts Guild will definitely enter the A-League." Li Beihai chuckled and said, "I remember that in Elite Martial Arts regular season record, when they were up against Silver Frost and White Phoenix, they were all 0-2, right? Who gave you the confidence? Just wait and see." On the contrary, Wu Chonglian revealed a look of victory. He crossed his arms and leaned back in his chair. Li Beihai's mouth twitched. He wanted to say something, but he held it in. In the Elite Martial Arts Guild's preparation room, the atmosphere was solemn. "Brothers, the guild leader has given a death order. We must win the championship. This year, the guild swears to charge into the A-League." Captain Wu Guangzong's tone was firm. The team members looked at each other. Tank Tanxiong coughed. "Captain, you wrote a guarantee?" "Yes." "Captain, did something happen to you?" Archer Pang Yu asked carefully. Looking at the team members' weak expressions, Wu Guangzong waved his hand and said, "I know what you mean. You all think that White Phoenix and Silver Frost are too strong and we can't beat them. But without a backup plan, how can I make such a guarantee in front of the guild leader? Even if I can, the guild leader won't believe it." The team members came back to their senses. "Captain, did the guild leader give us something good?" "Yes, we didn't know anything about it." Wu Guangzong laughed. "This time, the guild leader took out all the treasures in our guild. He wants to catch White Phoenix off guard. It's understandable that you don't know. After all, we have to keep it a secret. White Phoenix. Now, in my eyes, they're not even as good as chickens. Watch me pluck all their feathers." White Phoenix's resting room. Bai Xiaowen looked at the 2 items in his hands. One was a scroll shining with white light, the other was a small tower shining with golden light. These were 2 items. Divine Protection Scroll, S-grade silver item. After use, summon the shadow of a guardian angel. All allies within a radius of 600 meters will enter the divine protection state. Immune to all physical and magic damage below priority. 7, lasts for 60 seconds. Disappears after use. Pagoda, damaged, C-grade gold item. After use, summon the Pagoda Golden Pagoda to deal 3 energy shockwaves to enemies in the target area. Each shockwave deals 200 points of true damage. After the 3 energy shockwaves, add a repent effect to the targets in the area. Lasts for 7 seconds. Enemies in the target area will not be killed by the Pagoda Golden Pagoda. HP will be reduced to 50 points. Number of uses, 1/2. Super gods, after all, were once rich. This foundation is not to be underestimated, Bai Xiaowen said leisurely. Li Shi said, "Yes, when Grandpa was in charge of the guild, we were still an A-grade guild. Otherwise, we wouldn't have become enemies with the Giant Gods Guild." This was very easy to understand. Only opponents of the same level would become enemies easily. No one was willing to submit to the other. If one side was obviously weaker, they wouldn't provoke a strong opponent, and the big forces wouldn't be so free to trample on small guilds. Giant gods and super gods had a long history of enmity. It could be seen from the name of the guild. Later, the Giant Gods Guild took advantage of their wealth and power to poach Ling Feng from super gods. This was a story that happened later. It was not the beginning of the enmity between the two guilds. 2 items, one for attack and one for defense. Both are very rare. Needless to say, the invincibility type of item is needless to say. This gold item, Pagoda Golden Pagoda, is a relatively rare item with great power. It's a true damage item. Unfortunately, there's a limit to the number of uses. It's not the kind of item that can be used infinitely, Bai Xiaowen said. That's normal. That's why the effect is so strong, Qiao Rui said. What does the president mean by giving you these 2 items? Is he worried that we can't beat Jing Wu? In Bai Xiaowen's mind, the scene of Li Beihai quietly calling him to the study after dinner that day appeared. Xiao Bai, take these 2 items. Bai Xiaowen was shocked at that time. Uncle Li, you can't do that. Take it, just in case, Li Beihai said seriously. The White Phoenix team came this far all because of your hard work. The guild didn't help much. Instead, it benefited a lot from you. Seeing that it's the critical moment of the attack, that old bastard Wu Chonglian might be up to no good. Take it, protect yourself. Okay. If we don't need it, we'll return it to the guild after the finals. There's no need, Li Beihai waved his hand. If you don't use it in the competition, it means that you're going very well. You'll definitely be promoted to A team. At that time, these 2 items will be your reward. No, Uncle Li, people will gossip. After all, the White Phoenix team is only under the name of super gods. It's different from the main team. Bai Xiaowen refused. Li Beihai glared. What's wrong? You've contributed so much to the guild. Who dares to gossip? If anyone asks, I'll say it's my daughter's dowry. If anyone dares to say half a fart, I'll spit at them until their 7th uncle and grandpa can't recognize them. Dowry. Bai Xiaowen thought about it seriously and accepted it decisively. Chapter 11:11. Xiaowen, why are you looking at me like that? Li Shi was a little embarrassed. I'm not. Oh, nothing. Bai Xiaowen slapped his forehead. Let's speculate. The Elite Martial Arts Guild should have invested a certain amount of capital in this league. They might come up with something that will surprise us. In short, everyone should be careful. Don't think that victory is in the bag just because we swept them in the regular season. Understood. After experiencing the blood and fire of the spirit world and the baptism of the Great Unification, the members of the White Phoenix team were quite mature. Although they were very young, no one was naive enough to underestimate their opponents in the semi-finals. The 2 teams entered the arena and the captains drew the match mode. The Elite Martial Arts team entered the arena first and there was a burst of applause in the stadium. When the White Phoenix team entered the arena, the applause was obviously 2 or 3 times louder. Countless people waved light sticks and support signs, cheering for the White Phoenix team. Wu Guangzhong was quite unhappy. Why? We're an old-school team. We don't even have as many fans as these rookies. Tan Xiong whispered, probably, they're all fans of their looks. Old Tan, your words are too depressing. Although our team doesn't have any female awakened, the 5 handsome guys are not bad looking. Peng Yu puffed out her chest. There are a lot of girls chasing after me. Tan Xiong covered his face with his shield. In fact, 70% of the audience in the Jinghai Base City Stadium were fans of the White Phoenix team. The combination of Bai Xiaowen, Han Su, Qiao Rui, Li Shi, and Cecilia had the potential to kill both men and women. Tan Xiong was right. The majority of fans were fans of their looks. It was obviously a derby in the same city, but they made it seem like the White Phoenix team was the home team. It really made the Elite Martial Arts 5 angry. During the draw, Bai Xiaowen chose an empty ban, further igniting the anger of the Elite Martial Arts 5. He looked down on them too much. In fact, Bai Xiaowen didn't really think too much. He chose an empty band because he felt that the team could play in any mode. There was no weakness in any mode. This was only the first round of the semi-finals. If they lost in any mode, they would discover the problem. Wu Guangzong thought about it again and again before disabling the defender mode. Bai Xiaowen's 1 vs 5 performance in the quarterfinals was widely reported by various media outlets and caused a huge uproar. As a backdrop, the Lone Heart Battle team was naturally nailed to the pillar of shame. Wu Guangzong didn't want to follow in the footsteps of Lone Heart Battle team. In fact, after Bai Xiaowen had displayed his terrifying one-on-one ability, no one dared to use the White Phoenix Battle team's guard mode. Jingwu was only the first team to do so. The roulette on the big screen began to spin. In the end, it stopped at a line of bloody words: team competition, true slaughter mode. The audience cried out in surprise. They didn't expect the first round to be so exciting. All right. A smile flashed across Wu Guangzong's face, but his heart was filled with joy. True slaughter mode tested one's strength the most. It was unlike other team battle modes, which required a lot of intelligence, luck, and other factors. With the powerful tool given by the president, Wu Guangzong believed that his strength surpassed the White Phoenix Battle team. Using true slaughter mode in the first round could give the White Phoenix Battle team a head-on blow. When Wu Guangzong thought this, he had already tacitly agreed to one point. When it came to intelligence and planning, he was not as good as Bai Xiaowen. In the regular season, the strategy of bribing Han Su had failed, and Bai Xiaowen had beaten him at his own game. The strategy of the Leaders' Challenge had failed, and Bai Xiaowen's unconstrained airdrop had disrupted their deployment. Outsiders might not have felt much about these two matches, but as the person involved, Wu Guangzong's heart was traumatized. Those who played with tactics had dirty hearts. Bai Xiaowen was especially dirty. Both sides disallowed the terrain, and Bai Xiaowen chose to ban an empty area. Banning an empty area had become the White Phoenix Battle team's specialty. Originally, the White Phoenix Battle team did not like water battles, but ever since Han Su had the King of the Deep Sea equipment set, water battles were no longer the White Phoenix Battle team's weakness. Just think about it, how terrifying would deep sea impact be when its damage and stun duration were doubled? Not to mention, there was also an additional 10 points of additional attributes. Wu Guangzong secretly clenched his teeth, and then disabled the plain terrain. If the rules allowed it, he would like to ban all the open terrains so that Bai Xiaowen's summoned army could not be used. Hopefully, I'll be able to get a terrain that's beneficial for that item. Wu Guangzong prayed to himself as he entered the arena. After a short period of weightlessness, the elite team entered the map that had been created. Dig ha ha ha. The heavens are helping me, the White Phoenix Battle team is dead for sure. Looking at the boundless desert, Wu Guangzong laughed heartily, like a teddy bear that had successfully mated. Captain, this desert terrain is also considered open. It's suitable for Bai Xiaowen's summoned creatures to advance, said Tan Xiong, who had a shield in his left hand and a sword in his right hand. That's already pretty good. Bai Xiaowen has recently acquired a group of undead knights, and they can even use charge. They're very difficult to deal with. But the desert terrain can greatly reduce the speed of the knights, and greatly reduce the power of their charge. Wu Guangzong stood on a sand dune with one hand on his waist. Most importantly, the team battle item that the president gave me can maximize its power in the desert or rocky terrain. What kind of item is it? The other four could not hold back their curiosity. Wu Guangzong chuckled and took out a scroll. Everyone took a look and gasped. So powerful. Looks like the White Phoenix Battle team is going to lose to us by 1 point. Wu Guangzong coughed and threw the scroll to the shaper Wu Siheo. Here, you use this item, it's more powerful than mine. Pay attention to the timing, when I say release, you must not hesitate. Wu Siheo quickly agreed. On the commentary platform, the big screen was divided into two, showing the images of the two teams. Okay, we can see that the elite team and the White Phoenix Battle team are both using their own unique detection methods. The commentator laughed and said loudly, "The White Phoenix battle team is using the support Xiao Rui's Spirit of the Falcon skill to begin a large-scale aerial survey. As for the elite team's support Deng Zhou, his detection method is more efficient, and he's actually using divine detection. They have already found the position of the White Phoenix battle team first." The female commentator Alter said, "The distance between the two teams is constantly shortening. Although the elite team is prepared for a sneak attack, the White Phoenix battle team seems to have smelled something wrong. Wow!" Pang Yu's spear throw knocked down the Spirit of the Falcon, but the position of the elite team has also been exposed. The two teams have already engaged in close combat. The ascetic fighter Wu Guangzong took the lead and rushed into the White Phoenix battle team's formation, and with a fierce tiger's roar, he controlled 3 of them. Beautiful! The shaman Bai Xiaowen immediately airdropped a large number of summon creatures, blocking the elite team's attack angle. Almost every long-range damage dealer has a summon creature to harass them. This blocking position is the essence of it. Chapter 11-12. In the first wave of attacks, the White Phoenix team suffered some losses in terms of scouting. Wu Guangzong's first move was quite decisive, using Bai Xiaowen's CC removal food. However, the other teammates trusted Bai Xiaowen and did not rush to hand over the CC removal. Bai Xiaowen did not disappoint. With a wave of spirituality airdrop, he minimized the losses. The elite team's follow-up damage, especially the long-range damage, could not keep up. Therefore, the White Phoenix team did not lose any members and their HP was still healthy. However, after seeing Bai Xiaowen hand over the CC removal, Wu Guangzong's face revealed a sinister smile. "Good. Let's see how you dodge this move." A fist-sized black sphere appeared in Wu Guangzong's palm, and he threw it at Bai Xiaowen. "What the hell?" Bai Xiaowen's figure flashed, thinking that he had dodged the throw. However, the black sphere seemed to be able to turn, and after drawing an arc, it still hit him. Then, the black sphere shattered. A buzzing sound could be heard. Bai Xiaowen's expression changed slightly. He had already received a notification from Insight. Soul Annihilating Bees, A-grade silver item, the proud work of 5 immortals Sexy Xiangu. Created by using a large swarm of live bees. After the swarm of bees awakens, it will lock onto a target and launch a group attack. Each bee will die immediately after attacking. A single attack will cause 5 points of physical damage and apply a weak paralyzing toxin to the target. The swarm's group attack will continue until the target is dead or all the bees are dead. After the black sphere shattered, a dense swarm of hundreds of poisonous bees rushed towards Bai Xiaowen with buzzing sounds. Bai Xiaowen suddenly retreated, but the swarm of bees had already locked onto him and were chasing after him. The butcher landed in front of Bai Xiaowen, and the rotting toxin was activated. However, the rotting toxin fog, which had always been successful, did not work. Bai Xiaowen quickly received a notification that the swarm of bees was immune to toxin damage. Bai Xiaowen retreated while trying to use the ancient martial art of the grass sect, Dark Brush. The thin line of flame swam out, but the swarm of poisonous bees was quite intelligent. They circled around it and split into 2 groups, still chasing relentlessly. Bai Xiaowen could see that a few of the poisonous bees that were hit by Dark Brush's flames didn't die. Their outer shells only turned a little darker, but they were still able to fly. Not only is it immune to poison, but it also has a strong resistance to fire. Bai Xiaowen frowned. He really didn't know how he Xiangu of the 5 Immortals sect made this thing. What exactly did these terrible poisonous bees go through before they were made into soul-destroying robber bees? Bai Xiaowen was good at fire and poison, but he could not do anything to the venomous wasps. He could only keep retreating. Fortunately, the venomous wasps were not fast. If Bai Xiaowen ran quickly, the wasps would not be able to sting him. Thinking about it, it made sense. If the speed of such a terrifying swarm of poisonous bees was any faster, it would definitely be beyond the grade of an A-grade silver item. One venomous wasp dealt 5 physical damage. There were probably hundreds of them in front of him. If all of them stung him, Bai Xiaowen would definitely not be able to handle it. One had to know that the venomous wasps had paralyzing poison. Once stung by a few, one's speed would decrease, and it would be even harder to escape from the stings of the following venomous wasps. Seeing Bai Xiaowen retreat in a sorry state, Wu Guangzong laughed loudly, feeling very proud. What great leader of the great unified world! You're still trapped by one of my items. There's no way to escape. The elite team took the opportunity to attack fiercely. Their main target was Cecilia. According to the intelligence, Li Shi had the invincible slash to defend himself. Qiao Rui was even harder to defend himself. Cecilia was the easiest to push down. However, Cecilia spread out her cloak and only retreated for a little more than a second before disappearing in front of everyone's eyes. The snakeskin cloak's additional skill, Latent Shadow, took effect. In the latent shadow state, Cecilia directly used the mutated splitting arrow skill. The dense splitting arrow rain covered all the members of the scenic team except for Wu Guangzong. Wu Guangzong almost cursed out loud. She couldn't see through the skill's concealment? What kind of black technology was this? From the starting point of the splitting arrow rain, Wu Guangzong could roughly determine Cecilia's location and quickly rushed over. Under the rules of the spiritual realm, there was a detectable distance that was related to the priority of invisibility. When the distance was close enough, invisibility could also be detected. However, when he reached the target point, he didn't see anyone. Then, another sniper arrow was shot from another direction. This arrow accurately hit the archer, Pang Yu. Li Shi cooperated well and had already communicated with the team. He changed to the twin snake stinger set daggers and used the invincible slash to attack Pang Yu. Swish, 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 the daggers with faster attack speed slashed out 9 times in a row. Li Shi simultaneously activated the set skill, Twin Snake Fangs. It was as if he had grown 4 arms. Every slash was equivalent to 2 slashes. 9 slashes became 18 slashes. Of course, he also activated the devilish flame dance when he attacked. Then, there was the explosion of the devilish flame dance. Pang Yu was repelled by the sniper arrow. Before he landed, he turned into white light and died. The spectators were dazzled. They didn't expect the White Phoenix team to be able to one-shot one player when their main player, Bai Xiaowen, was frozen. How strong was their strength? It was practically prickly. Release! Wu Guangzong roared. The shaper Wu Siheo took out a scroll. However, in the next second, a chain flew through the air with a clatter. Wu Siheo's figure was dragged over as if he was riding the clouds. He was shocked. Bai Xiaowen should have been frozen and couldn't even protect himself. How could he still be in the mood to control Butcher? Before he could complete his thoughts, Wu Siheo's head was hit by a wrench. He saw stars and his movement speed decreased sharply. The one who dragged him over was Han Su. The anchor chain wrapped around his waist also had the skill effect of a meat hook. Han Su's physical movements were faster than his thinking. When he saw Wu Siheo take out a scroll-type item and heard Wu Guangzong say release at the same time, he instinctively pulled Wu Siheo over and entangled him tightly, not giving him a chance to use the scroll. However, Wu Siheo's blink skill allowed him to escape from Han Su's range of control. He stretched out his hand and the scroll was released. Boom! There was a loud noise and the earth shook. Countless large sandstone spikes suddenly extended from the yellow sand under the feet of the White Phoenix team members. Caught off guard, the White Phoenix team was collectively hit by the sandstone spikes. Then, their legs were covered by a layer of crystallized sandstone. In addition to receiving damage, there was also a 3-second group stun effect and a 5-second imprisonment effect. This was the S-grade silver item, Sandstone Land. The elite team's trump card. Han Su immediately used the Deep Sea King's Hua Ring to remove the control. He waved the wrench in his hand forward and targeted the area. The crisp sound of a bell rang, and the phantom of a specter ship appeared. It rushed towards the remaining 4 members of the elite team. Using group control to deal with group control was the best tactic Han Su could think of. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.